everybody's been doing their various sort of like postmortems of the election. This week in particular, we had the PodSave interviews with the Harris campaign people and Hassan. People are still continuing to theorize as more data comes out. And as a consumer and disseminator of political information, naturally, I've been doing the same.
Of course.
I've been trying to think. I don't just think on the show. I think off the show, trying to craft some theories.
In my dreams.
In my dreams as well. This theory did come to me in a dream last night, and I felt I had to share it with you. And now, this is a two-part theory attempting to analyze why Harris lost so hard to Donald Trump. So I need you to please stay with me as I both propose the two parts of the theory and bring them together and find consensus with them.
Judge it as a whole.
As a whole. So please, once again, stay with me.
It's a complete work.
Part one, there's a huge key factor, I think, that separated Biden, the only person to beat Donald Trump, from Kamala Harris and Hillary Clinton.
Okay.
And I think that was the character of his gaffes. That's part one.
Okay.
Stay with me. Please stay with me. That's just part one. Part two, we all know, possibly the biggest story to come out of this election is that young men swung hard right.
Okay.
Super hard right for Trump. People are saying it's because conservatives have captured online alternative media. And yes, I think that does have merit. I think that's a big part of it. I want to zoom in on a key constituency within the young male demographic that I think everyone has been ignoring.
Okay.
That is young white men that desperately want to be black.
Oh my God.
Hear me out. When Biden famously said, if you don't vote for me, you ain't black. I think he spoke to a core part of these people. I think in doing so, in threatening to take away blackness, he left there room for them to assume that maybe, possibly, they could say it if they voted for Joe Biden.
Joe Biden said, if you don't vote for me, you're not black, which implies that if you do vote for him, you are black.
And although like that is a faulty comparison, that is a faulty assumption to take from that.
Yeah, illogical.
I would argue that there's space given for it. Space that the Harris campaign did not hold.
You can see how a median voter arrives at that conclusion.
Exactly, 100%. You can see how this type of person in this key demographic could arrive at something like that. We had nothing in those 117 days of campaigning that spoke to that person, that key person within the young male demographic.
And look, everyone, when they're doing their autopsies, they're always looking for bellwethers. You know what I'm saying? They are looking for a group, a location, a demographic, whatever, that will indicate the victory.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's like, oh, Polish Americans, the way they go is always the way the president goes, or this certain county in, Western Pennsylvania is always predicting who the president's going to be, whatever, or the primary in Washington, whatever. And maybe we've stumbled upon the true bellwether.
Exactly.
Young white guys who want to be black.
What demographic could more accurately represent what the median voter is than that demographic right there? Come on, guys.
We got it all right.
I think we got it. I think we figured it out.
This might be the case that ties together the entire election.
That's what I'm saying.
What do you think Hillary Clinton and Kamala Harris didn't do for these people?
They didn't hold space for him.
They didn't hold space for him. Plain and simple, folks.
They didn't speak to him. Didn't speak to him like Biden did.
You think Biden himself, as a young man, maybe wanted to be black, and that's why he can do it?
I don't know. I think that's tough.
Only God knows that.
He does, and it's something we have to contend with.
Yeah, people, we need to appeal to these guys.
You have to look at what the data show and what it don't show. Yeah. You know what I mean? And these are people that fall through the cracks.
Regardless, you don't need to try to convince these people. You need to just speak to them directly, no matter how nonsensical it is.
Yes.
You can't, there's no room for persuasion in politics at all.
There isn't. And there is something to be said about having a somewhat charismatic gaffe.
True.
Although that was awful and crazy. That is something that was different.
Yeah, and that was pre-dementia, at least the stage he's in right now.
And he won.
Yeah, and he did win.
And he won. You can't say it wasn't because of that.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
When we isolate factors, that has to be one of them.
Kamala Harris didn't have a gaffe like that.
Her
worst gaffe was associating herself with the establishment.
100%.
And she it wasn't even a gaffe. She doubled down on it. It was a prescription.
Can we believe that?
Can't. Welcome back to Head in the Office, everybody. We're coming at you with another episode, post-Thanksgiving episode. I hope you all had a happy holiday if you celebrated. And if you didn't, I hope you enjoyed time off work if you got that or something of the like. Either way, we're back at you with another podcast as always. This week, we got to talk about, as Gage already brought up at the beginning of this show, there was the first time that the Kamala Harris campaign staffers spoke out on Pod Save America. It's the first time they did that, and we got to talk about it.
We do.
And we're not going to give them any free advertising.
They
I don't know. They might hit us with
lot to
copyright
say.
anyway, but
they had a whole lot.
It's like an hour and a half. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
lot to dissect there. We'll also be talking about geopolitics. Naturally,
have to.
We got something that resembles a ceasefire. Kind of,
yeah.
I mean,
something that's officially called a ceasefire.
Right.
We have rulings out of the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals.
Yep.
So something bad.
Yeah.
Always.
And we've got a section that I imagine is going to be recurring for a long time, and that's tariff talk.
Tariff talk.
We got tariff talk later on in this episode because Trump's threatening more tariffs. And as long as Trump is president, I'm going to imagine maybe every week, maybe every other week, we're going to be talking about potential tariffs, especially for the next few weeks. So that's what's coming up on this episode. But before we get into all of that, I'll remind you, become a patron. If you want to support this growing left-wing media ecosystem, it's an ecosystem, then you got to go over to patreon.com/headintheofficepod. You get early access to this show and our newest series that we just launched, People of Interest, which is now available for everybody on YouTube and all the podcasting platforms.
Pretty good. You fuck with interviews, you fuck with guests. That's all right there.
Head over to Patreon. Those are going to be dropping a week early for people on Patreon. And it also, you support these sacred halls. And by these sacred halls, I mean the studio, of course.
Yeah, the only place in this world that has any dignity left, has any reverence for it left.
Principles, norms.
Principles, norms,
ideology.
institutions. The institution of this podcast, not podcasting as a whole, because that's been wholly co-opted and corrupted.
Exactly, yeah.
But the institution of this podcast and the walls that surround it, standing strong.
So head over to Patreon, support it, and get in while you can, because who knows? Maybe we'll get hit with a Trump tariff, and we won't be able to operate anymore.
That's true.
Small business crusher. You can also get some merch at headintheoffice.com. 50% off of Ground News with our link in the description. That's a hell of a deal, folks. That's a holiday deal.
Pretty good.
Not going to last forever.
That's pretty good.
Not going to last forever. Another and long enduring way you can support the show is by leaving a 5-star review on Apple. We have 4 here today. The first one is from Korgs.
Truly no better way to espouse your support and have it out there forever.
That's right. First one's from Korgs, 2 beautiful boys with beautiful opinions. They say, first off, I denounce Hamas. It's not really that tasty, and I don't get what all the fuss is about. Hiddo is one of the few podcasts that balances a sane leftist view on politics while still being generally optimistic and focusing on solutions rather than doom and gloom. Big ups for my 2 handsome Midwestern fellas. Whitmer Pritzker, 2028.
Oh, could be.
Yeah, a lot of people have been wish casting the 2028 Democratic primary.
Yeah, a lot of people wish casting it wrong.
And yeah, let me just say, Gavin Newsom, no.
No.
Even Pete Buttigieg, no. He's too close to the Biden administration.
Tim Walz even? I'm sorry, but he's been contaminated.
People that are eligible for the 2028 primary, Whitmer.
Yep.
I'll take Pritzker even though he's a billionaire, but whatever. I'll take Andy Bashir.
I absolutely take Andy.
Nobody from California. I'm sorry. I get not all of you are bad, but nobody. If you're from California, it's disqualifying.
You know, it's a demographic thing. You
exactly.
Know what I mean, you gotta play to what people are okay with.
Exactly. The future of the Democratic Party is coming from the Midwest.
Yes.
Whether you like it or not, it is what it is. And if you don't like that, leave.
And you know what? Yeah, if you don't like it, leave for sure. That's something that we should be saying a lot
about a lot.
Clearly,
of issues.
it fucking worked. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But ideally, although I would be fine with those candidates, ideally, somebody who's unknown.
Yeah,
somebody who's just isn't touching politics right now.
Maybe a populist, someone who can run against the party. Against the establishment in the Democratic Party. That'd be pretty cool.
Well,
I don't know. It's something to think about, folks. It's something to think about. Whitmer consideration. Anyway, next one here is you got this one?
Yes, I do. From C. John Comic. Michigan boys done good. As a Michigander myself and host of a podcast about the comedy scene here, Jeremy and Gage are genuinely hilarious and make listening to politics digestible. I just started really getting into politics 6 months ago, and these two help keep me into it. Wonderful.
Median voter.
Endorsement from comedy.
I just got into politics, and this person just got into politics.
Yeah, 6 months ago. Hold on a minute.
Is that right before the Biden dropout?
That's like August.
Yeah. No. That was earlier.
June. That's what June 6th. Yeah. So that's like May, June.
As soon as Biden dropped out, this guy was like, wait, what's going on?
Bro saw Trump get shot, and he's like, wait a minute.
This next one is from Charles McStuffins. Glad I found this. They say, probably my favorite progressive podcast. I'm so glad that I recently found this.
It's my favorite progressive podcast, too.
And I'm glad you found it as well.
I am glad you're here. You can be here and leaving a 5-star review, just like our last one, Rark Muffalo, Deadass Modern Brilliance. As to not have anything misconstrued, I condemn Hamas and all political violence. Anyways, I'm not trying to be dramatic, but I would die for this podcast. This is genuinely the highlight of my entire week. I've made my entire family listen to this podcast, and I'm absolutely not sorry about it. Please continue doing what you're doing.
Well, if Rark Muffalo is asking, I feel like we have to.
That's what I'm saying. You know? I think so too. I think so too.
Die for this podcast. I didn't know we had shooters out here like that.
We do.
we got people dying for the cause.
We got hitters.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you're all here. Thank you for the reviews, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. Get comfortable because we're gonna dive into some more postmortems.
I was gonna say you may not want to be here when you have to see what the people who were in charge of the campaign had to say. But please endure.
Yeah. So that's gonna start us off on the news here. We got to talk about the postmortems, and look, we're in December now. We are officially out of election month. But the postmortem continues, as of course we would expect. I hope you all had a nice Thanksgiving. Hopefully you didn't argue if you had family gatherings or something like that.
And hopefully if you had to, you stood 10 toes down.
Hopefully you won.
Hopefully you won,
exactly. More importantly, hopefully you changed minds in the marketplace of ideas.
Yeah.
Because that's important.
We are in December now. It's Sunday, December 1st, and damn near not a good thing came out of November.
Yeah, that's true. November was a bad month.
We didn't even fucking get Spotify Wrapped.
No.
Can you believe that?
Doesn't that usually come in December?
No. The last 2 years it's come out like the Wednesday before things. It's come out November, late November.
Are they just not doing it now?
No, they're doing it, but they're probably just shifting it back.
Oh.
I'm fucking disappointed.
The Biden's final action is pushing Spotify Wrapped back.
Well, no, I would argue Trump was elected and Spotify Wrapped is coming out late.
There you go.
Sad.
Yeah.
Sad. This is the Trump economy.
And I mean, we're going to talk a little later about tariffs, and Trump's already doing policy before he's even in office. So anyway, we'll get to that in a little bit. But news has sort of calmed down since the election, at least domestically, foreign policy wise, things are going crazier than ever. But this week sort of reminded me of years past for Hiddo.
Okay.
Not a ton happening.
That's true.
We can sort of dive more deeply into the news stories we got in front of us because we don't have like a trillion different election stories happening at one time.
Yeah, we might be getting back to classic Hiddo.
Yeah, this was a week where I sat down and I looked at I take notes throughout the week to like just note things that I want to talk about in the show. And I didn't have anything on there. I was like, oh shit.
You said nothing ever happens.
Yeah, so then I was like,
maybe history is over.
Let's rip some content from other people and talk about it on the show.
That's right, buddy.
So we're going to talk about the Pod Save America interview. We're not going to play any clips because I don't know if they'll content ID us. I don't want
the producers seem bitter, so.
So we're just going to be talking about what happened. But basically, if you don't know, Pod Save America spoke with top Kamala Harris advisors and strategists, making it, again, as I said, the first time the campaign has spoken up or done any interview since the election. These people have been silent since November 5th. And I don't want to spend a ton of time rehashing our own post-mortem takes because we've been doing that for the last 3 episodes.
Yeah.
You already know our opinion. You know why we think Kamala Harris lost. You can go back and listen to those episodes if you want to. But I think this interview is important to talk about, not because it's done by a popular left-wing liberal podcast, but because I think it points to the rot within the DNC. I think it really exemplifies what's wrong with the party. And it's worth listening to, even if it's just a hate watch, because I think it'll give you a good look at who these people really are. And look, I don't blame Crooked Media or Pod Save America for doing this. The question certainly could have been better. The dude doing the interview could have pushed back a little bit more.
Oh my gosh, I know.
But the state of the advisors, their emotional state and how in shambles they were, I feel like if any more pushback, they would have just crumbled on camera.
Yeah. Homeboy on Zoom looked like he was going to cry. Dan?
No, well, Dan was the dude asking the questions.
Oh,
David
right.
Plouffe was on Zoom. And he, if you listen to the entire interview, he got progressively more aggressive and frustrated.
Yeah.
At one point, he's like, it's hard for Democrats to win in swing states, okay?
And it's
hard.
These are shot callers. These are the people that control the direction of the campaign.
Senior members of the campaign. Yeah, absolutely. So the Pod Save America interview featured 4 different Harris campaign strategists. And it's very, very obvious that they do not understand why they lost. They repeatedly blamed a tough political environment and a short runway. And broadly, those 2 things are real, right? They were certainly factors that we've talked about. It was a tough political environment for establishment candidates.
Yeah.
That's what the political environment was, right? They repeatedly reaffirmed this idea that Kamala Harris, and this is what they said themselves. This isn't me embellishing. They said repeatedly that Kamala Harris was not interested or willing to or comfortable in separating herself from Joe Biden. They said that over and over, that she saw herself as a part of the administration and that she didn't want to go back through 3 years and pick out things that she didn't like that she would have done differently, when that is precisely what the moment called for.
That's the part of the interview that like pissed me off the most. I swear to God, because she got on there and she said something along the lines of like, we wanted to show them that we were different from Biden without pointing to anything, because she didn't feel comfortable with cherry picking policies. And we were worried about people coming out and saying, people who were in those meetings coming out and saying, well, why didn't you bring that up in the meeting? Mm-hmm. Why were you worried about that?
Yeah.
Why? I was listening to the Majority Report talk about this, and they said, if anything, that's a fucking good thing.
I was going to say it had been an advantage.
Yeah, if anything, it further separates you from Joe Biden.
Yeah.
And even if it didn't, even if you could only perceive that as a negative, there's not a single voter that wasn't already going to go out there and vote for you that would read an New York Times opinion column about the fucking issue. Nobody cares what staffers has to say. Nobody cares what even fucking some cabinet members have to say past their appointment. It's a non-issue. What do you mean somebody was going to leak that Kamala Harris was okay with something 3 years ago?
If anything, the people voting in the election hate the fucking establishment.
Exactly.
They hate the existing administration. It'd make you look good if they all came out against
you. If anything, if she made herself a pariah from the Democratic Party, she probably would have won.
It would have looked a lot better. Yeah, the specific quote was, "We wanted to show she was different without pointing to a specific policy issue."
That's so crazy to me.
What does that mean?
Yeah.
Like, that's the most, like, liberal strategist thing I've ever heard.
We just wanted to say she was different. It's like they took the advice of, like, oh, you need a narrative? And they just said, oh, we'll just lie and tell a story. And they didn't even lie good.
It's like, this first became an issue. She was on The View in, like, September, and they were like, what would you do different? And she said nothing. She said, I can think of nothing that I would have done differently. Yeah. And it's like, in that moment is when they realized, oh, this is going to be a question that we get. They didn't think about it beforehand. What would be different?
And it's like, I think the staffer who was explaining this also said some shit like, oh, she just didn't feel comfortable with it. She had a deep-seated loyalty to Biden. Mm-hmm. Why? For what? What did he do for you, dog? Like, I get that you're like the vice president, but nobody remembers the vice president unless they become the president.
Exactly.
Like, and you fucked up.
And I had posted this on Twitter, but it's like, I don't care about your personal allegiances or your personal sentiment towards people that you work with. When you are running for president, you occupy a broader historical and political position than anybody else in the country at that time.
You're a public servant.
Like, I literally, if you are running for office, especially if you're running against a fascist who, if the fascist wins, things get a lot worse. If you're running for office in that position, I straight up do not care what you're comfortable or uncomfortable with doing. Yeah. Your job is to fucking win. Like, I have no, it should not be a consideration what you're cool with doing. You should do what you need to win and run on moral issues with a message, of course.
And it's also crazy to me that she can bring up the point about, like, oh my God, what if a staffer writes an article? When the whole fucking campaign, they talked about how many staffers wrote articles about Donald Trump. They talked about how generals told people Donald Trump was literally Hitler. They talked about all of the fucking cabinet appointments that turned their back on Donald Trump.
They ran an article campaign.
Exactly, and it didn't fucking matter. Not a single person turning on Trump mattered. Even important people like, I don't know, generals and cabinet picks.
Yeah, it really reaffirms the idea that, like, only liberal, like, consultants in the liberal elite are reading, like, the New York Times and shit. Like, I'll read a story if it's like a prominent thing that I'm trying to learn about, a headline, like if I seek it out, you know what I mean?
And it makes sense because I'm not paying for that shit.
But
nobody else is paying for that shit.
But I'm not reading, like, the op-ed section. I'm not reading the opinions columns. Like, it's not happening.
Well, most of the time they're written by demons.
Precisely. It's crazy. Now, of course, there was a short runway, which is the other thing that they kept mentioning, right? They said she didn't want to separate herself from Biden. We know this is a mistake at this point. And then they also kept saying it was a short runway. Like, there was 107 days in the campaign. That wasn't enough to define her, sell a full narrative, attack Trump, and do all the things that you would typically do in a campaign during, like, a year and a half. Yeah. You know what I mean? Or a year after you win the primary. But the people that were at the table were the same people who urged everybody that Joe Biden could still run after that terrible debate.
Yep.
They were and I'm not making this up. There was one guy who was at the table who was asked, before Biden dropped out, were you in any way preparing for Harris to take over? And he said, no, after the debate, my job was to make sure that people thought, or to convince people that Biden could still do this thing.
We should have fucking cleaned house.
There's exactly.
Those people should not like have a job. Like, I'm sorry, but
like all the people there were committed to keeping Joe Biden in the race, and then they just transitioned to Harris's campaign team. The people with the worst political instincts of our time, of the day.
I would argue they didn't even transition to a Harris campaign. They transitioned to her team, but they just ran Biden's campaign.
More conservative than he would have, probably.
No, literally. Yeah. You take the Biden campaign staffers and you have them staff your campaign. They're going to run it like a bad Biden campaign. They don't even have the guy at the front, and that's exactly what they did, and we lost.
It sucked. They also consistently talked about this need to dominate the moderate vote. When they, by their own admission, didn't get turnout numbers that they wanted in Philly or Detroit.
Fucking insane.
And I'm guessing those numbers were something relative to 2020.
Yeah, they said, we got it in Milwaukee, but not these two bigger cities.
Yeah. Yeah, and didn't even win Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Like, it literally doesn't matter.
What the fuck, man?
And, of course, there was no mention whatsoever of the millions of people that stayed home in this election compared to 2020. And of course, as we said, when the election first concluded, like on the Wednesday after, everyone was like, oh, there's 15 million missing votes compared to 2020. We know that's not true now. We have more of a full count at this point, but it's about 5 million.
Yeah.
The difference between 2020 turnout and 2024 turnout is about a drop of 5 million. That's 5 million voters that did not turn out in this election, and there was no mention of them. Any point during this expose exclusive interview, not one time did any of the strategists say that we need to turn out voters that didn't turn out.
The only the dominant fucking narrative was just, we need to turn out these moderate voters. Moderate voters exist in swing states, and we need to appeal to them. Conservatives don't think like this.
No.
There has never once been a fucking conservative meeting on the record, or even, dare I say, off the record, where they say, guys, we need to appeal to liberals.
There's no such thing as a moderate voter.
Yeah.
There's like 8 of those in the country, and one of them is Joe Manchin now. Yeah. There is no moderate voter. There's a median voter, and that person has wildly inconsistent views across a variety of topics, but there is no person that defines themselves as a centrist. It's not a real thing.
Yeah. And
regular people don't do this.
They constantly talk about dominating this moderate vote. Conservatives, once again, did not give a shit about the moderate vote. No. They became more extreme in their rhetoric. Yeah. They platformed more extreme figures within their party, and they dominated the vote.
Yes.
Not just the moderate vote. They fucking won the popular vote for the first time in ever.
Yeah, exactly. Like, Donald Trump didn't care about a message to moderate voters. No. All he talked about was tariffs and inflation.
Donald Trump didn't give a shit about nuance.
If you think there are moderate voters out there, you would think that there would be a strong cohort of voters that hate tariffs.
Yep.
Because the moderate voter would know what a tariff is and what it does and why it's bad and why it's big government overreach or whatever, but they don't exist.
If there was truly a moderate voter, someone who had moderate political opinions and was well-informed enough to genuinely have a moderate opinion, they would never vote for the fucking Republicans in their current state.
Right.
That doesn't exist. If there was an actual... Moderate voters are liberals. Moderate voters are your base, dog.
Yeah.
Like, turn them out.
Like, you ran with Liz Cheney. She is the moderate. They were asked about this a few times about Liz Cheney and Dick Cheney and like running with conservatives and stuff. It's just insane to me that they never thought once that maybe we shouldn't run with the daughter of the most murderous person in the country.
The only vice president to actually do something.
He had like a 15% approval rating on the way out. Like, you didn't think that maybe running with the daughter of the person who personifies the old Republican establishment's a bad idea?
Yep.
It's fucking insane. You're not appealing to anybody with
and it's
this.
Like, I think they said something along the lines of like, oh yeah, you get all these Republican like cabinet people who say they support you. That probably does more than Harris saying it herself. Yeah. That does do more than Harris saying it herself if that's the kind of people you're going for. You don't need to adopt that into your rhetoric.
Yeah.
Clearly, you are admitting, by your own admission, that it doesn't work as well when Harris does it. So why are you leaning so hard into Harris platforming these people and Harris campaigning with these people when if they are going to switch to your side, they're going to do it anyway. They're going to talk about it anyway. They're going to go on their media appearances and endorse you anyway. You don't have to accept them fully into the tent.
Yeah, they incorporated Liz Cheney into the campaign.
Exactly. You don't have to do that. You don't have to lean so hard into it to get whatever marginal benefits come from it.
Yeah, and I understand the temptation in seeing someone like Mark Milley or John Bolton.
Yeah,
Bolton for the Bolton, or Liz Cheney or whoever, like old Republicans or conservative types saying bad things about Trump and then highlighting that as a way to like attack him in an ad or when you're doing a town hall or something like that. But I almost feel like those people who are very much coded as establishment types attacking Trump and you highlighting it just makes Trump seem more like an outsider, which is what the electorate wanted this time.
It makes him look way cooler.
Yeah.
Why would they care if Liz Cheney doesn't fuck with you when they don't fuck with Liz Cheney?
The more egregious parts, like the Hitler thing, like Trump saying, I want generals like Hitler, like, highlight that, because that's a genuinely insane story. I feel like most voters, moderate or not, wouldn't like Trump saying that, and they wouldn't like the knowledge that Trump said that. But other than that, you don't need to incorporate Liz Cheney into your campaign. Especially when you're like, we're going to fight for moderate working class people. You have a few policies that do a little bit of economic populism, but then you're incorporating Liz Cheney and Mark Cuban into your campaign.
Yep.
The message is completely muddled.
Yep.
I'm not even saying people rejected it because it was conservative. It just doesn't make any goddamn sense.
Even if we're lying, right? Even the character of the message is just wrong, right?
Yeah.
I think he got on there and he talked about our closing speech was about economics. Brother, I didn't even watch your fucking closing speech.
God,
I didn't even watch that shit.
It was at the ellipse. Nobody cares.
I'm saying all I saw was that stupid fucking clip where she's like, "Look at the stars."
Oh my God, yeah. Field of Dreams.
Who fucking cares about a closing speech to a campaign? No voter is getting all the way up to the election and saying, "Oh, but she talked about the economy and she talked about what Trump wants to do to the economy in her closing speech. I'm gonna vote for her." That doesn't fucking matter.
Nobody cares.
That's not anything. And even when she does message on it, they said, "Oh, she talked about the economy a lot. She talked about tax credits for small businesses and I don't know, startups and whatnot."
Crypto.
Trump is telling you he's going to lower the price of groceries.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen. That's damn near fucking impossible to happen. But he's saying it.
Yeah.
And she can't even come close.
Yeah, no, she can't do any kind of economic populism yet. And they kept saying that, like, she talked about the economy. It's like, your message on the economy was dog shit.
Yeah, she talked about it not in any meaningful way.
She talked about who she was going to fight for. She just kept... She said the same line over and over. I'm from a middle-class family. My mom was a middle-class small business or fucking whatever.
Trafficking drugs. I prosecuted fucking the trafficking of drugs, crime of human beings or whatever.
She called it message discipline, and message discipline is a good thing, but you can't just say the same thing over and over and expect people not to just tune out.
And it's so crazy because you're talking about the Charlemagne interview, right?
Yeah.
When she was on with fucking Charlemagne the God, and he's like, "You like to dodge questions a lot, and you like to not answer anything candidly and just repeat the same fucking rehearsed statement over and over." And she said, "That's what on message is." That is not what being on message is.
And he was trying to give her an out.
I'm saying.
I think in the clip he was like, I know that's not who you are, but people say this about you. Like, he was trying to help her.
That is a child's understanding of what being on message is, brother. You also have to be charismatic.
Yeah, no, it's not great. And I feel like it's this, like, I don't know if I can exactly articulate this, but there's this sense among these sort of DC elite liberal consultants that voters are either liberal, moderate, conservative, and that's just what they are, right? Like, you're born with a certain political ideology, and that is just what you are. It's a part of your identity. It's this unchanging thing. Maybe it can deviate a little bit. Maybe people can persuade you to vote for somebody else, but on the whole, people are liberal, moderate, or conservative. But normal people don't think of themselves in this way.
Yeah.
Normal people do not think of themselves as political ideologues or members of a certain political party. They might say that they vote for Democrats, they vote for Republicans, they might call themselves an independent, but nobody thinks of themselves as I'm a conservative, I'm a liberal. Normal people don't do this.
Yes.
And so when you design your campaign around appealing to conservatives, you just muddle the message, because people fundamentally don't just see themselves as liberal or conservative. That's not what people do. It's silly. And I think emblematic of the problem. And then, of course, in this interview, no mention of Gaza whatsoever.
Yes.
Not that I expected it, but again, I don't think it was a decisive factor in this election as much as maybe it should have been. But I do think it contributes to incompetence and this feeling that Kamala Harris and Joe Biden don't know what they're doing and they're fucking over the country. But, of course, no mention of Gaza by these strategists whatsoever.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
So that's great. Love that. Lovely.
They also repeated this talking point that I've been seeing from liberals since the election, that in the areas they campaigned, they did better. Again, I still think this is stupid because obviously.
Yeah, and it's like, you did better in the battleground states you campaigned in. You still should not have done that bad in New Jersey.
Yeah.
You still should not have done that bad in New Mexico and New York. Like, you lost voters everywhere. You did not turn out voters everywhere.
Yeah.
You lost massively, bigly.
Yeah, it's like, oh, the strategy was working in Madison, Wisconsin, and Milwaukee and Detroit. Like,
not Detroit. Turnout was low in Detroit. Well, as they said,
turnout was low, but they did bad, but not as bad as elsewhere. They did slightly less bad in the places they showed up, but it's like, first of all, still lost, so that doesn't matter. But they're using this as evidence that the strategy worked. That there was this huge anti-incumbent, anti-establishment bias, and the fact that they showed up in these places and got her, approval rating up from where it started, and the margins were lower in places that she campaigned than where she didn't campaign. They're using this as like a sign that their strategy was working, but you lost. Yeah. Like you would expect. The expectation is that a campaign does better in places that they campaign than where they don't campaign. Mm-hmm. That's what the campaign is. But you still, it doesn't matter. I don't understand this talking point. It's so stupid.
You still didn't win. And it's like they just kept, guys, no, it's really hard to win elections. Like, you don't understand how hard it is for Democrats to win in a battleground state. It's also hard for conservatives to win in a battleground state. That's why it's a fucking battleground state. Yeah. If you told me it's really hard for Democrats to win in, I don't know, Montana, then it's like, yeah, that's real. Yeah. I understand why we didn't flip that Senate seat. But you're like, oh, it's super hard in the place that we predicted it was going to be hard in the place where we don't really have like super solid margins in. No fucking shit, dude. Yeah. And it's like, also, you pointed out on Twitter, 10 of the 12 senators in like harder to win states, we won.
Yeah, we have those seats. Yeah.
And they all outpaced Kamala Harris. Even the senators that lost in Pennsylvania outpaced Kamala Harris.
Oh, Bob Casey was down by like 30,000 votes. Harris was down by like 120.
Yeah, you just did bad. Mm-hmm. You isolated as a campaign, and you being a figurehead of that game, someone who campaign, who can call the shots and make decisions, made the wrong decisions, and you don't want to take accountability for it, right?
Yeah, literally no accountability whatsoever. They will not accept the fact that they're just bad.
No, it's super hard to win, even though literally everyone else did better. Even though every other campaign staff did a better job than we did, it's really hard to win, guys.
Except in Pennsylvania, every other Democrat that running for Senate in a swing state won. Yeah. Where we didn't. Like, yeah, okay, dog. It's hard to win an election. Like, I don't know what the fuck you want.
I'm saying. And then there's that tweet from the Democrats, like the Twitter account, The Democrats, that really set me off. That was like, everybody. yeah. It said something like, everybody's talking about how bad that Harris campaign did, but we won 4 Senate seats in like swing states, and that's something that hasn't been done since the 70s. But you lost the Senate. You lost the Senate bigly.
You lost the Senate, you lost the House, and Kamala Harris lost in those states that you're talking about.
So what do you mean? Oh, guys, we were actually able to like win more seats in swing states than we usually do. Okay, you lost overall in that category and every other category.
Yeah, it's just restating that the person at the top of the ticket was really bad.
Yeah. The only place you gained seats in was the House, and you didn't even gain enough to flip the already thin majority.
It doesn't feel like a flex that people down ballot did better than the person at the top of the ballot.
Yeah, that is an indictment
Especially
of you.
When you're running against a dude who has all these convictions, who has been denounced by like so many different people in media and politics, running against this guy who cannot control himself, who's talking about all these insane policies he wants from mass deportation to tariffs to all this other stuff. You can't beat him. This dude's eminently beatable. Eminently beatable. This dude talking about loving Hitler.
Yeah.
We should be able to beat him.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So that's a summary of the sort of top talking points that they offered.
That's what the top guys are telling you to abdicate themselves of responsibility.
Exactly. They're trying to sort of exonerate themselves for all the bad things that they did, for the fact that they lost, that they blew this election themselves, right? They're trying to convince us.
They're not even trying to exonerate themselves. They're trying to put it on you.
Yeah. Yeah. Honestly, they are kind of just blaming the voter. They're basically saying that the headwinds were just too strong. It was insurmountable. We couldn't have won, which is like...
You should have fucking watched the closing speech, dumbass. Yeah. And then maybe she would have won.
If voters only cared about the threats to democracy, we could have won. But aside from that, I want to diminish the character of these people. I want to talk about these people as individuals.
This is true. And, before we get into that, I also want to say I do feel vindicated in my long-running stance on the podcast that nobody fucking cares about January 6th. I just got to say that, because that's another point they absolutely hammered home, and nobody gave a shit about January 6th.
Yeah.
It was a bad thing that happened, but I feel like I was right in saying we should not be focusing on it as much as we did.
It's crazy that nobody cares.
It is insane that nobody cares. Like, that's funny, an event they should have cared about, but damn.
Yeah, nobody cares about January. And I feel like part of it is because, and this isn't even a thing we talked about, part of it I feel like is because Biden's DOJ dropped the ball.
Oh my God! Yeah.
Like they took so long to even start prosecuting Trump, and then by the time they did, now Trump is getting Jack Smith to resign or whatever.
It'll be dope to see Anthony Blinken lose his job and Merrick Garland lose his job, but it's not going to be dope to see their replacements. You know what I mean? Two things can be true at once.
Yeah, what's her name? Pam Brandy or something like that is getting AG. She's low key just as bad as Matt Gaetz,
just without not with the baggage,
without the pedophilia and stuff like that. Yeah, of course. Protecting ourselves legally speaking. But as I said, I want to go after the character of some of these staffers as individuals. It's not enough for me to defeat them in the marketplace of ideas. I need to go for them personally.
Like, why are these the people we're consulting with, expecting them to be in touch with what the median voter thinks?
And I hope by the end of this, I prove to you that the people, first of all, first premise, that Democratic strategy is fake job.
Yes.
I want to prove that to you. We've been saying it for months. Yep. We're going to prove it right here. But I also want to prove that these people specifically should never be anywhere near a presidential campaign ever again. Because of who they are, what they do, and what it has molded them into.
Almost all of the experience that quote unquote qualifies them for the job, in my book, is disqualifying for the job.
Precisely. So two of the top Harris campaign advisors were David Plouffe and Jen O'Malley Dillon. I want to read some of the excerpts from their Wikipedia pages and see if we can draw any conclusions about why they suck so fucking bad and why maybe we lost this election.
Okay.
For Jen O'Malley Dillon first. In 2011, O'Malley Dillon joined Obama's 2012 re-election campaign as deputy campaign manager, contributing to Project Narwhal. After Obama's re-election, she co-founded the political consulting firm Precision Strategies with fellow Obama campaign alumni Stephanie Cutter and Teddy Goff. Through Precision, O'Malley Dillon also advised Gates Ventures, a venture capital firm founded by Bill Gates, the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative, founded by Mark Zuckerberg and his wife, Priscilla Chan, General Electric, and Lyft. Her deferred compensation and severance from Precision was at least $420,000. So literally in the pocket of some of the wealthiest interests in this country. Jen O'Malley Dillon.
Low-key, they're the swamp. Like,
yes.
to fucking adopt Trump rhetoric in Trump times, they're the fucking swamp.
Yeah, she was working for this place called Precision Strategies, a political consulting firm, working on behalf of Bill Gates, Gates Venture, a venture capital group, and Mark Zuckerberg. So that's the sort of caliber of person we got involved in the political campaign. And then for David Plouffe was an outside senior advisor to Obama since the president's first day in office and was then appointed as senior advisor to the president inside of the White House in 2011, following the resignation of David Axelrod, who went on to start Obama's re-election campaign. In September 2014, he became the senior vice president of policy and strategy for Uber.
Come on.
In May 2015, he left that role to become a full-time strategic advisor for the company. In January 2011, he joined the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative to lead its policy and advocacy efforts.
His whole career is just getting closer and closer to billionaires and further and further away from the average American. And we decided that these are the people that know what's going on. I get that they have they have credentials in consultancy in a time where that was valuable in a political environment where that shit all worked out. Obama won and he won huge, you know what I mean? But they are unable to recognize, and they clearly were demonstrably unable to recognize, that the electorate is wholly different now than it was in 2008 and 2012. We are dealing with different people. We are dealing with people who just think differently as a whole. People who have different political values. The political environment is nowhere near the same. We will never again, not for a long time at least, have a debate like Romney-Obama 2012.
No, it's not gonna happen.
We all saw the debates that happened. We all saw the even the Hillary-Trump debates, the fucking Biden-Trump debates, and now the Harris-Trump debate and Biden-Trump debate. Wholly different. And they are just getting worse and worse every 4 years.
Yeah.
We are living in different times. They need to be able to adjust. And I don't think that people who are just getting wealthier and wealthier and wealthier have the capabilities to actually adjust to what people who are getting poorer and poorer and poorer think.
Yeah. Well, and they were a part originally, the campaign that made their name was Barack Obama's election. You know what I mean? That's why they have the legitimacy that they have. But Barack Obama, not to glaze him because, war criminal and all that, that's Barack Obama. You know what I'm saying?
That's what I'm saying.
A once-in-a-lifetime orator.
All of these people who came up with Barack Obama became firmly established in politics because of how successful that Barack Obama was.
Not deservedly so.
And that's what the point I'm exactly getting at is it's less so in hindsight because they were so good at their jobs and more so because both Obama's just a generational talent.
Yeah,
that guy can talk.
Yeah. Right time, right place.
He is
that's all it is.
Uber fucking charismatic. And that's honestly what it is, because these people cannot adjust to modern times. Even if they could back then, like,
I don't know exactly what work they did in the 2008 Obama campaign or once they got into the White House or whatever, but they didn't earn it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I have to feel like if their ability for strategy can speak to anything today, and if it can speak to their ability in the past, I feel like it was probably Obama that got them there and not them.
It was definitely Obama that got them
in the right place at the right time.
Oh my goodness!
But
man.
this is why we say that these people that we're talking about really just make us feel like democratic strategy is it's a fake job. It's not real.
Yeah.
Because they spent some time on a successful campaign in 2008 and then later in 2012. They spend some time in the White House. And then they leave the White House to get these cushy private sector jobs until they again join another campaign, this time infecting it with the wealthy interests they now represent.
Yeah.
Because they were a part of a successful campaign initially. And they may not even be doing it consciously, right? They're just so far removed from the lives of regular people that this is kind of just what they do. And if there's anything that ever resembled a sort of original purpose for political consultancy, it's this. It's the revolving door.
Yeah.
It's going in and out of private and public sector. And then when your talent for strategy or your ability for strategy is put on display in front of the entire country, you crash and fucking fail because you never actually earned it. You never actually deserved it in the first place.
Yep.
And this is where it gets us with Donald Trump in office again, because we trusted these fucking people.
And it's so fucking crazy.
Yeah.
I can barely even find the words for it, but it's like they're just wholly unequipped to do the job and understand that like we just need strong narratives going forward. You can't tell me that there are literally AOC Trump voters in New York, people who voted for both of them on the same fucking ticket, right? And that they're not voting based on the narratives that those two candidates tell them. Harris did not offer that in any way, shape, or form. Everything that these people did specifically on the Harris campaign was wrong.
Well, and think about Bernie Sanders, like the Bernie Trump voters. You know what I mean? Like, we joke about that because it's goofy. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? But the groups that, quote unquote, abandoned Harris this time around were the ones that also supported Bernie quite a bit.
Exactly.
Young men and Hispanic men.
Yeah.
Like, those are the two demographic groups that have, quote unquote, abandoned Harris, but were once firmly in the camp of Bernie Sanders. And it's like, I don't know. I feel like it all ties very neatly together that these people represent at times venture capital, and they also want to speak to the moderate voter, and they want to involve Liz Cheney, and they want to involve people like Mark Cuban. Like, it all feels a little too neatly tied together for me not to point it out and say, like, yeah, these people are just corrupt. They are the swamp. Like, they are the establishment people that are infecting and destroying the Democratic Party that once represented the working class, or at least tried to, and now is a sort of ghost of its former self.
And now it's literally saying, for every member of the working class we lose, we'll pick up another manager.
Yeah, thank you, Chuck Schumer. Yeah, the managerial class will take us to victory.
No, you guys don't get to the petit bourgeois.
Yeah, it's really bad. And of course, they refuse to cast any actual blame, and this includes the Pod Save America guys. I haven't seen them drop anything since, although maybe they have, maybe they will. I haven't seen them drop anything since, like, blaming this group of people for the failures of the campaign.
It's just, oh no, I understand. Like, yeah, it is really hard.
Yeah, and I feel like they do that because they know these guys are looking for jobs in the future, and they're all friends with each other. And again,
they all come from the same bubble. The Pod Johns came up Obama 2008.
They were speechwriters, yeah. Like, and they're just a media company at this point. They don't like work, as far as I know, inside of Democratic Party politics. So I don't really care what they're doing. It's more just the strategists themselves are the reason that we're in this position. They can't understand why. And the reason that they're so terrible is because they are a byproduct of the establishment that we should be running against. Like, they're going, it's the revolving door. They're going in and out of politics, representing various different capital interests, and then leading the campaign down a path that ultimately gives us Trump again. Like,
we just need like radical new leadership, radical new strategies going on. And it's like, I'll point to the Hassan Pod Save America episode with what John Lovett. Yeah. That's the guy who did it. And there was this moment in there where John pushed back. Hassan was talking about how, like, there's a general, like, refusal within the Democratic Party to, like, point to people. They weren't whipping Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema hard enough. And that's why we didn't get a lot of good things done. And John's like, oh, well, how do you do it? Manchin was always this like conservative Democrat. He was never going to vote for these things. And Hassan brought up the thing that I think we said a couple years ago where it's like, okay, have the DOJ investigate him. Have the DOJ go after him for owning a coal mine. Have the or for his brother owning the coal mine that he like gave to him. Have the DOJ go after him for his daughter selling pharmaceuticals in West Virginia, and Joe Manchin voting against Medicare being able to negotiate prescription drug prices. Have the DOJ look into him for the conflict of interest there. Threaten that. And John said, yeah, but you can't really be suggesting that we weaponize the DOJ against our political enemies.
It's not wet. It's using it for its intended purpose.
Using it. And also, those are things that Joe Manchin is doing that should be investigated. I would argue that not going after him just because he's a person in power, just because it can be perceived, is like a weaponization of the DOJ in the other way.
Yeah.
Like, you should be using these tools, one, because he should be investigated for that already, and two, because it could get him to do a good thing.
Yeah, none of these liberals today could have ever worked with FDR.
That's exactly what I was going to say, too.
FDR was a demon.
People called FDR a dictator because he did shit like that.
Yeah.
And you should be doing shit like that. How else are you going to whip a person like Joe Manchin?
Yeah.
That's
just
like, what it is.
All Democratic coalitions live in the shadow of FDR's legacy. Like the New Deal created droves of lifetime Democratic voters. And then, of course, that shifted a lot when we got Bill Clinton and then Obama. And then, of course, here we are now with Chuck Schumer saying the shit about abandoning workers for managers.
And then you have like another aspect of why Democrats have kind of just like failed that these last 20 years is that they haven't done anything. There's this discussion around like black voters specifically, and like black voters turn out the hardest for Democrats. That's just a fact. That's what we've seen this election, every other election. Older black voters more so than younger black voters. And some of the analysis behind that is being older black voters remember things like the Civil Rights Act. They remember what came after. They remember that the Democrats fought for them and actually gave them something that changed their lives. Younger black voters don't have that.
Yeah, and that wasn't even a full lifetime ago.
Exactly.
60 years.
What do younger black voters get? Kamala Harris telling them they should do crypto? Like, what are we talking about?
Saying maybe I'll legalize weed?
But as like a
tweeting
as a footnote legalize on the
weed
campaign, a week before the campaign is over. Democrats have given just us nothing.
Yeah.
They've given everyone nothing.
Yeah, we really shouldn't be surprised that younger people who look at the world now and see an economic system in a political reality that it makes them hopeless turn to somebody like Donald Trump. Because, look, I don't think Trump offers them anything better for the future. He offers young men casual misogyny.
Yes.
Which obviously gets people excited to some extent. But when people are insecure, when they're not hopeful, when they're not optimistic about the future, they turn to authoritarian type figures, which FDR was. So, like, if we're being real, like FDR wasn't a fascist, of course. He did some bad things. Japanese internment camps, obviously, very bad. But FDR was an authoritarian type. He used the power of government to go after his political enemies to get done what he wanted to get done.
I've held the position that if you use the power of government to do good things, that's good.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because the conflict is the heart of the economic and political system, whatever. But when you don't have a sort of vision for the future of the country, even if it's not exactly the same as Bernie's, but something akin to it, one where you are literally consistently throughout your entire lifetime focused on addressing the needs of people at the bottom, then yeah, people aren't going to take you seriously. Like Kamala Harris changed positions as recently as 5 years ago. Yeah. You can find clips from Bernie in like 1990 where he's saying the same shit that he's saying today.
Bernie is the only, at least was as of like 2 years ago, I don't know if anything's changed now, probably not, the only like sitting senator or sitting like congressperson who had pictures of them protesting for civil rights.
Yeah. Biden said he did, but he lied.
Exactly. Yeah. Biden said he did, and then he did the crime bill. Yeah. Like, and then he went to the David Duke's funeral or some shit like that. But like, come on, man.
Because they don't believe in anything, right? They think that they have to change their position based on where the electorate is without recognizing that you can change how the electorate views all of these issues.
Yes.
If you believe in something consistently.
I don't think there's a single voter that would have been upset with Biden even if he publicly said, Joe Manchin, if you don't vote for this, we're investigating you.
Oh, yeah.
Voters hate corruption.
Yeah.
Voters, that's like the one fucking thing that people actually talk about when they want to talk about politicians is, oh, I think they're all corrupt. I think they're all trash. Okay, let's clean house. That's why Donald Trump got elected in 2016, is because people thought he was going to clean house. He damn near ran on weaponizing the government against people.
No, yeah, literally. and he's doing it now.
100%. He's doing it explicitly. I understand that if you do that against a conservative, then you play into conservatives' victim narratives.
Oh, yeah.
But you could totally do that to whip your own caucus.
Within your own party, absolutely. Nobody's coming to save you.
Goodness, man. Come on. Why not? Joe Manchin's not going to fucking run again. He had always been signaling that.
He is already blocking everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So why not do something? You're supposed to be a one-term president. Why not stake your legacy on this?
Yeah, no, it's just there's no expending political capital. There's no firmly believing in anything. It's just reinforcing the institutions that exist that nobody actually trusts anymore.
Yeah.
And we got more of this shit at there was some recent political event where Hakeem Jeffries was there talking to Liz Cheney.
Come on, man. She failed. She did wrong. She should be fucking excommunicated from politics.
Yeah.
Nobody fucks with her. Nobody on the Republicans fuck with her. No Democrats should fuck with her. That strategy was wrong.
Yeah, it was bad.
It did not work.
It didn't work. Well, Hakeem Jeffries was having an event with her. And of course, they were talking about, civility, maintaining the institutions and stuff. And Hakeem Jeffries had a quote where he was basically, saying some shit like, during these hard times, it's us who still believes in the norms and the institutions and the ideas and shit like that.
I don't believe the norms and institutions in my fucking 3 years of living have not brought me anything. We haven't raised minimum wage since the early 2000s?
2009, I think, or 10.
Something around there. Like federal
Obama
minimum wage is fucking $7.25.
Yeah.
Or $7.50. It's in the sevens. That's insane.
Yeah.
That's fucking crazy.
Yeah, and when our political institutions can do things like when we fund the IRS, the only agency that actually gives us revenue when we put money into it, Republicans hold it up and we just give up the fight.
Yep.
We just completely concede the fight.
We just say, oh, nobody likes paying taxes, so we're not going to try to do any of the rhetorical work to change people's opinions on taxes, change people's opinions about what IRS funding goes into. I don't think I heard them once mention that they actually audited more millionaires and billionaires. I can't remember where I saw this, but some people were saying that the IRS found that like Coca-Cola owed like $16 billion in back taxes, and they were only able to do that because they received more funding in the IRA.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Trump
funding that's going to go away.
Exactly. Yeah. That's not them going after you for, I don't know, fucking selling whatever under the table.
Yeah, well, the increases to funding for the IRS were done through the Inflation Reduction Act, which was budget reconciliation.
Yes.
And that isn't a permanent fixture in the budget. Like, that's going to go away when Trump comes into office. It's not going to pass.
Yeah.
So, well, liberals have an inability to like point to an enemy and to have like a broad narrative that ties it all together because they don't actually believe in anything.
And it's like, yeah, it is hard to sell the idea that like, the IRS is actually cool and good, guys. It makes money for the government. I get that.
Yeah,
but you have no chance at selling it if you don't try, and if you don't tie it to a strong narrative with like I don't want to say like a strong man, but like with a strong like leader.
Well, yeah,
a charismatic leader.
You don't need to make the case that like, oh, the IRS is actually good. You just need to say that I'm going to use the power of the government to go after the rich that are exploiting the American people.
Exactly.
That are stealing from you day after day. And this isn't just like a throwaway thing that you say in one speech. This is a message you harp on relentlessly for years and years and years, maybe even before you become the president, because that's how you get people to know you're authentic and you actually believe in a certain set of values.
Yeah,
this is what Bernie Sanders does.
I will fucking wield the power of government to point the IRS at your boss.
Yeah.
That damn, good work.
It's what the moment calls. People hate their boss. People hate it's what the moment calls for. And liberals, they can't meet the moment. Pod save the establishment. Oh my God. It's bad out here. Look, anyways, that sort of wraps up our analysis of this Pod Save America episode. If we had a competent liberal party in this country, these people would be excommunicated forever. It should have been a layup against Trump. He's an unpopular previous incumbent. We should have been able to beat him, but we will not be able to beat him or people like him if we have these guys at the helm of the campaign.
I feel like another microcosm that helps represent how liberals are kind of missing the moment, even like after the election, even after there are like lessons that are staring us in the face, is the fact that the Pod Johns and CNN are calling Hassan the left Joe Rogan. They fundamentally misunderstand like why Joe Rogan has captured the hearts and minds of so many young men, and it's because it's not politics first.
Yeah.
When you tune into Joe Rogan, you are not tuning into Joe Rogan for politics. You're tuning in to hear about, I don't know, what if a monkey fought an alligator, and then and then you just so happen to hear a discussion where he peddles misinformation about the COVID vaccine.
Well, Joe Rogan used to be a Bernie guy.
Exactly.
Like you don't need Joe Rogan used to be a liberal. Like you don't need to make a liberal Joe Rogan in a lab, or you don't need to think about like, oh, how can we invent these non-political massive media figures that actually push people over to the Democratic Party. You need to have a brand that's fun for people to be involved in. And that's why Joe Rogan was into Bernie at all to begin with. And now he's been pushed towards Donald Trump, and I think he is kind of irrevocably on the right wing now. I don't think there's any getting him back at this point.
Fucking 8 years of Trump discourse?
But you don't get these massive media figures by being explicitly political. You have to have a brand that's actually welcoming to people generally, which liberals haven't done.
People don't fuck with politics.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry, but like you are not going to capture the median voter with Hassan. Hassan is politics first. You tune into Hassan to hear his takes on politics.
Yeah.
That's what it is. That's the fundamental thing there. If you want a left Joe Rogan, you need somebody to organically come up over like 20 years in some other space, and then all of a sudden a massive fucking once-in-a-lifetime event happens that shifts them to the left.
Yeah.
Like, that's the media moment was just, we weren't there for it.
Yeah, and maybe part of the idea is also just that we need a broader left-wing presence in media generally, and for that I totally agree.
Yes.
But first of all, the people that are like firmly on the sort of liberal Democratic side are really fucking annoying. Yeah. I'm not going to name names, but you know who I'm talking about. But people that are further to the left, that people actually enjoy watching, that are a bit more fun, the Democratic Party's never going to give them money. Like, the DNC is never going to reach out and pay us.
No.
Like,
I fucking wish. I'd take that back instantly.
The DNC is not going to reach out and pay Hassan. They invited him to the DNC and then kicked him out.
Yep.
These bigger media figures, not that we're anywhere near Hassan, but you get the point. Like, these bigger left-wing leftist media figures that can actually draw people in, that have real beliefs, that are consistent in their beliefs, they're not going to get the attention of the Democratic Party because the Democratic Party doesn't represent their interests.
Yeah.
It doesn't represent what they actually believe in.
And it's like, if you want to talk about like the media sphere, right? It's the focus should not be on we need a left Joe Rogan. The focus should be on we need a left Daily Wire. That is so much more apt, and the Daily Wire still feels that niche of capturing young men. They still get in there, and they still do the emotional appeals to things that young men care about. You know, if you're framing it in that sort of way, there's a media apparatus there that gets. I don't want to say gets orders from the top down, because I don't want to get orders from the top down. Yeah. But there's more of a unified like kind of message there.
Yeah.
Liberals just constantly want to shit on us.
Like the TYT kind of tried to do something like this, but they've had a gas leak for years now. That's gotten a Chank's mind now.
Yeah,
as of late.
Was on Thanksgiving talking about crime.
They're kind of just like regressing to 08 Republicans. It's kind of weird. But like, there needs to be a sort of media apparatus like that. And because Daily Wire is funded by oil billionaires, or at least initially was. Again, there's just no equivalent for that on the left. Yeah. It would have to come from a group like the Democratic Party or some like adjacent super PAC for that to happen. But of course, once you do that, the people that you hire, like if you brought Hiddo in on that, we're not going to advocate for things that are aligned with the business interests of the people behind the super PAC. Yeah.
So it's like there is a disconnect there just between like what the people at the top want and what the people at the bottom want. That's why there needs to be a fundamental like restructuring.
Yes. Absolutely.
So silly.
It reminded me of one part in the Pod Save America interview, just talking about like how out of touch these people are, where Dan, the interviewer from Crooked Media, mentioned the Beyonce event. And when he says Beyonce event, we all know what we're talking about. Yep. It's the event Beyonce was at.
The Houston rally or whatever.
Exactly. And then one of the campaign people, she was like, oh, well, I call it the reproductive freedom event.
Shut the fuck up. Like, that's come on. It's the Beyonce event. That's what, my fucking girlfriend and her friend tuned into the event on the TV because Beyonce was going to be there.
It's the Beyonce event.
It's the Beyonce event.
And she was like, well, no, we called it the reproductive freedom event. Brother.
You're being a liberal.
Meet people where they're at.
Nobody fucking likes liberals, and this is why. This is exactly why. Oh my God, man.
It's like, I fuck with the purpose of the event. Reproductive freedom. Very important.
Very important. I've been talking about this.
But you got to meet people where they are. You You can't do this annoying shit.
Like this is your guy. This is the guy interviewing you from your side, giving you like a softball thing, bringing up an event that was good. It was not supposed to be contentious. Why are you doing this? Why are you being a liberal about it? This is the kind of shit that brought about Gamergate. Like this is why people don't fuck with you, man.
Yeah, no, it's real bad. And then of course, Pod Save America after the Hassan interview had fucking Seth Moulton on.
Who's Seth Moulton?
He's a Democratic representative from Massachusetts, I believe. He's the one who immediately after the election had an interview with New York Times where he was like, well, I don't think Democrats should be afraid to say they don't want men running over their daughters in high school sports.
That was the fucker?
Yeah, they offered some pushback. It wasn't just like an endorsement of his belief system.
Yeah, but he's like the worst Democrat.
Yeah, but he came out and offered the wrong take immediately. Like that's not why Democrats lost the. Kamala Harris did not run on woke issues.
Oh my
fundamentally.
God, man, it's fucking insane. And it's like even within like Democrats, there's so many different like things going on. There's so much like, no, it's not my responsibility. It's really hard to win, or it's because of progressives. I feel like on the left generally, we're all in agreement. Yeah. We're all in agreement that it's a fucking messaging issue. It's a narrative issue. Uncharismatic people at the front, people who don't know how to reach voters, and that's what's going on. And then you look at the people who have more like institutional power, and they're just, oh man, guys, fuck, like feel bad for us.
Yeah, they suck.
It's really hard out here.
Yeah, they're really terrible, and
trans people.
Yeah, well, of course.
don't forget trans people.
And to their credit, the people on the Harris campaign didn't think that the they them ad was emblematic of like trans people causing the loss for them. So at least they didn't go that route.
Thank God.
They said basically what we said, that it makes her just look incompetent because there was no response.
Yeah.
But like you got to design the response, guys. Mm-hmm. Like you're the ones who are supposed to respond. Anywho,
and it's also maybe Kamala Harris shouldn't have just been disingenuous about her positions when she was trying to be woke in 2020.
Yeah.
I don't know, man.
I really wonder what Pod Save America is going to turn into over these next 4 years, because they did not save America.
No, they did. There's one good one. I don't tune into Pod Save America as much, but I've had you've heard my opinion of them on this podcast before. It's just liberals, you know what I mean? But there's one good John. Maybe he'll spread his influence.
Yeah.
It's blonde John. I don't remember his name.
Tommy, I think. Yeah.
Tommy?
Yeah.
Fuck, man.
I listen to them because I got to know what the liberals are saying.
You got to know.
Got my thumb on the
stay
pulse,
in.
of course.
Exactly.
But I'm wondering what kind of bend they're going to take. Because it seems there's this, I don't know if you heard of this, but there's this term that popped up in like 22, I think, called popularism. Not populism. Popularism. And it's this idea, very, very simply, that candidates should run on what is popular and not run on what is unpopular. And I think a more sort of strong man or a steel man version of this is basically a candidate has a set of ideas. They shouldn't mention the ones that are unpopular, but they should mention and talk about the ones that are popular. But again, it sort of abdicates any responsibility to craft a message or a narrative or convince people that your positions are correct.
Is it just populism without the narrative?
Yeah, kind of.
That's like, this feels like the most liberal thing.
Yeah.
This feels like the most liberal thing, where we want to just like bend this to our will and win how we want to win without having to do any work and step outside of the box. Popular, what the fuck do you mean? That's what everyone does.
Yeah.
Like, you hide your policies you don't want to talk about in the platform.
Well, yeah, and it's like, I mean, it's kind of weird because it's like, okay, don't run on things that are unpopular. Yeah, sure, of course. Don't be like repulsive to people. But I mean, there are some ideas that are morally correct that aren't like at 50% approval rating. You know what I mean? Like if we went back to the 60s, Martin Luther King was very unpopular. Would you have said that like your candidate shouldn't associate himself with Martin Luther King because it would have been unpopular? Like there are some moral issues that we should fight for that we can shift public opinion on because we have a megaphone.
And it's also like Trump routinely associates himself with things that are unpopular.
Yeah.
Routinely does it, but he's an outsider and people don't like the establishment right now. And he's somewhat charismatic in the way that he goes about it.
People only care about immigration because he doesn't shut up about it.
Exactly. He made the narrative, and you guys actually put a megaphone to it.
Yeah.
You, Joe Biden, put a megaphone to it.
We're like, well, he's actually right, but what if we are a little less evil?
Yes, he's actually right, but like, what if we couldn't put up razor wire, but we could do everything else?
Yeah.
It's a good times we got going on.
It's not great.
Popularism, that's crazy. I remember that's so fucking. It just makes me think of the DNC took out being anti-death penalty from their party platform this year. Why? Why the fuck are we doing shit like that? Like, has the establishment shifted right? Like, maybe the established Democrats have just shifted right. There's been a shakeup within the top of the party, and they are projecting that onto the average voter.
Yeah,
I can't fathom why you would take out being anti-death penalty from the platform.
I think it's just rot. Like, I think they base all of I don't think they have any real positions that they're like willing to stick for and argue for, and they base all of their campaigns off of public opinion polling data that they do, or focus groups or whatever, and it comes across as stale, and they don't get any outside pushback because they all talk to each other.
Well, and it's also like, clearly the people who came up with Obama got really rich.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
They got fucking immensely wealthy and decided, we should keep doing exactly this. And I mean, that's what we saw. We immediately put up Hillary Clinton just because we didn't want to immediately put up Biden. Everything since Obama has been about Obama and the people who came up with Obama. And Obama did fine, but nobody else can be what he was.
Yeah, it's very clear that he won because he's him.
Yeah.
Because Obama is Obama. Like, he didn't win because of the strategist behind him.
Yeah.
Like, every politician's always like, I got to thank my amazing team. It was just him.
No, it was you. They should be thanking you.
Yeah.
You lined their pockets.
Yeah.
Like, oh my goodness,
They hitched their wagon to the right guy at the right time.
And
that's all it was.
Everyone that's came up after him has been a failure, with the exception of kind of Joe Biden. But it's not even because of that. It's because, I don't know, in his old age, he ended up being way more progressive than anyone could have thought on domestic policy.
Well, because of the woke-off.
And it's there was the only change that has come about within the Democratic Party has been the change that was spurred by Bernie shifting the party left, by Bernie forcing the party to go left because he genuinely was going to win that primary.
Yeah. Yeah.
Come on,
It was close in 2016, man. We could have had it all.
Everything.
Really
it could have been so
had
different. Oh, my goodness.
Anyways, moving on to our next story here. We got to talk about tariffs.
Tariff talk.
We got to talk economic policy.
We got Talk Tool. We got Tariff talk. Come on now. Number 1 and number 2 podcast.
Absolutely. Talk tariff, and that is what we're talking about this week.
We're going to get Talking Tariff Talk, a new satellite podcast to come out.
We got a bit of a saga to talk about here.
Okay.
This past week, Trump, President-elect Trump, of course, was doing some policy before he even stepped foot in the White House again.
Oh, love that.
As the president. He's legislating, as it were, from Mar-a-Lago, I'm guessing. I don't think he's going very many places at the moment.
Okay.
But he's out here designing economic policy. And it's funny how it works nowadays, because usually, you wait till you get into the office to start doing stuff.
Yeah.
Trump is just making announcements and calling foreign leaders before he's in office. And I know he's about to be president, so it doesn't make a ton of a difference. But I just think it's funny that, like, we already forgot Biden was president.
Yeah.
And now he really isn't.
No, he's not. Because it's like, and leaders are already reacting to things that Trump is
the lamest
announcing.
duck. Yeah.
Like the lamest duck. Exactly. Yeah. Leaders are already reacting. Leaders are already crafting proposals to implement as soon as Trump does his thing. Like, Joe Biden sucks.
Yeah, exactly. But again, we're talking about tariffs. Trump is once again doubling down on tariffs. This time, he'd offered a more concrete plan. And he did this through a Truth Social post, which all good things come from, of course. He said, quote, "As everyone is aware, thousands of people are pouring through Mexico and Canada, bringing crime and drugs at levels never seen before. Right now, a caravan coming from Mexico, composed of thousands of people, seems to be unstoppable in its quest to come through our currently open border. On January 20th, as one of my many first executive orders, I will sign all necessary documents to charge Mexico and Canada a 25% tariff on all products coming into the United States and its ridiculous open borders. This tariff will remain in effect until such a time as drugs, in particular fentanyl, and all illegal aliens stop this invasion of our country. Both Mexico and Canada have the absolute right and power to easily solve this long-simmering problem. We hereby demand that they use this power, and until such a time they do, it is time for them to pay a very big price."
Hold on a minute. Like, let's rewind just like 30 seconds there.
Break it down.
What does he mean there's a caravan composed of thousands of people that seems to be unstoppable in this quest to come through our currently open border?
I actually don't know. I've not seen any reporting to that effect.
I don't want to be a liberal about this, but, like, come on. Is he literally talking about a caravan of thousands of people?
I don't think so.
He's got to be talking
he might be saying that,
right?
He might be saying that. But he's also the same guy who did caravan fear-mongering in the past.
Okay, that's
like
right.
He's playing repeat hits.
But it's like if we're fear-mongering about a caravan, come on, man. Like, how does that land with you? How does that land with you, the Trump voter? Like, what do you mean? We know about a caravan coming over. We can't stop at the borders open. You know about it.
Yeah.
The point of illegal immigration is you don't fucking know about it.
Yeah,
They just come up.
Now, of course, we as we have said before, tariffs as a solution to this problem is nonsensical because, and this is according to the conservative Cato Institute, trafficking is primarily by Americans and for Americans, right? This announcement that he made about tariffs was to stop immigration and to stop drug trafficking. But again, according to the Cato Institute, on fentanyl specifically, in 2022, U.S. citizens were 89% of convicted fentanyl drug traffickers, 12 times greater than convictions of illegal immigrants for the same offense. In 2023, 93% of fentanyl seizures occurred at legal crossing points or interior vehicle checkpoints, not on illegal migration routes. So U.S. citizens who are subject to less scrutiny when crossing legally are the best smugglers. Fentanyl coming into the United States is not an issue that tariffs can resolve, and it's not a thing that illegal immigrants are doing. It's what Americans do for other Americans.
Yeah, I promise you, the Venezuelan family that is begging for Border Patrol to cut the razor wire so they can enter the country is not carrying loads of bricks of fentanyl in their backpacks.
Because they're going to be searched like crazy.
Exactly.
Or shot and killed.
Like, nobody who is actually doing these, like, illegal crossings is actually, like, in a meaningful, like, number.
Yeah.
A meaningful percentage of what drugs get trafficking these drugs. Like, that's not what's happening.
Yeah.
Literally by the stats you read off.
And of course, every leader of the nations mentioned in this post already spoke out. They've already said border security is a concern. Elsewhere, he mentioned China and increasing tariffs by 10% on China. They've already said, like, we're not importing fentanyl into the country and that a trade war would just make the situation worse than it is right now.
They're not literally importing at the shipping docks fentanyl.
Yeah.
It's coming over in other ways. Dog.
Yeah, exactly. And look, we import a lot of stuff from Mexico, Canada, and China. I think I read somewhere that it's like 40% of all imports this year were from those three countries alone.
Did you retweet that graph that showed each state and their like biggest trading partner?
I don't think so.
Oh, well, I saw a graph on Twitter that laid out like each of the 50 states and their biggest like trading partner. And obviously, you know, the top half, like the north of the country, Canada.
Of course.
There's a little bit spurred throughout the south that's like China. And then the rest, it's fucking Mexico.
Yeah.
Like we're killing ourselves here, dog.
Yeah, like, of course, they're our closest trading partners. And the craziest part here is that Trump keeps complaining about Mexico and Canada. And the current trade agreement that we operate under is called the USMCA.
Yeah.
It is an agreement between the United States, Canada, and Mexico. And it replaced NAFTA, which was the previous trade agreement, and was negotiated by Donald Trump in his first term as president.
Come on, man. The
USMCA was Donald Trump's plan.
Like, and it's like, I don't understand, like, what's the fucking point of these, like, punitive tariffs? It's not going to do anything. Most of the people who are here in the country illegally, like, the actual, like, illegal immigrants, if we're not talking about, like, drug trafficking and whatnot, are here on overstayed visas.
Yes.
What are you going to do? Impose more tariffs on the countries that you've granted visas to? I don't understand. Like, what... Man, tariff is the most beautiful word in the dictionary, man.
It really is. It's a beautiful word. Now, President Claudia Sheinbaum of Mexico has already responded. She's promised retaliatory tariffs on U.S. imports to Mexico. She also said, quote, 70% of the illegal weapons seized from criminals in Mexico come from your country, speaking of the United States. We do not produce these weapons, nor do we consume synthetic drugs. Tragically, it is in our country that lives are lost to the violence resulting from meeting the drug demand in yours.
That's a crazy bar, actually.
So she cooked this dumbass pretty hard. The saga continued, though, when the two leaders spoke on the phone last week, I think either Wednesday or Thursday. Again, Trump being president before being president. It's kind of cool. And after that, Trump claimed that Sheinbaum, and this is a quote, agreed to effectively close the southern border. Sheinbaum followed it up with a post of her own saying, Mexico's position is not to close borders. So it seems like Trump's kind of just backing off. That's what it seems like.
It's so funny how this is like, this is an issue that is already being solved, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to skip ahead a little bit to like stats that I was going to talk about in the next segment, but per the AP, since last December's like high of like migrants who had came over the Mexico border, reports that the AP reports that illegal immigration is down 40% and that it's largely attributed to Mexico's actions in securing rail yards and highway checkpoints. Normal points of entry, might I add.
Yeah.
Like, we're already fixing the issue. Biden is already working with Mexico, or Mexico is doing it themselves, being like, okay, let's shut this down.
Yeah.
Let's actually, like, I don't know, let's do some harder regulation. Let's tighten this border up.
It's nonsense. I don't even know, like, what prompted him to post this. He's just cooking on his own in Mar-a-Lago, I guess.
Man.
But so it seems like Trump kind of just, like, backed off the issue. or maybe he never wanted to impose tariffs at all. His voters or his supporters in the media will see this as like a unequivocal dub for him. Like, oh, he got the uppity woman running Mexico to stand down. But really, all she did was say, like, no, we're going to keep doing what we're doing.
Yeah, no, because it's like, what's the narrative here? That the president of Mexico, who's actually been, like, doing good things for the people of Mexico, following, like, the previous administration as well, is actively sending people over here? Like, oh, yeah, go on ahead.
Well, yeah, that's always the narrative. And
why?
I appreciate that she just came out and basically said, like, no, I'm not going to do that.
He said, no, actually, you guys make it worse for us over here.
Yeah.
In other ways than the ways that leftists say.
Yeah, exactly. Now, before we move off this tariffs thing, I got a question to ask you.
Okay.
I'm
all ears.
With the amount that Republicans have complained about inflation over the last 4 years.
Yeah.
Surely they'd be against a 25% blanket tariff on our closest trading allies, right?
You know, you certainly would think, especially when you see that, again, like the Trump-Biden tariffs, the increase on tariffs on Canadian lumber, increased housing prices by an average of like 36,000% per like the Tax Policy Institute. But
and that's bad.
That's direct inflation.
And you think Republicans who want lower prices would be against these tariffs, right?
I would think so.
I got bad news.
Man.
I got a quote here from Republican Representative Derek Van Orden from Wisconsin. And in relation to these Trump tariffs on Mexico and his deportation plans, he said the following, quote, "If it means I have to pay more for guacamole."
Nah. Nah.
If it means I have to pay more for guacamole, but fentanyl poison does not come across the Canadian and Mexican border, and our mothers and sisters and brothers and daughters aren't poisoned to death by this chemical that's coming across the border, I'm willing to pay more for guacamole, as is the rest of the United States of America.
Man, that's crazy.
That's crazy.
And it's like two notes here, right? One, guacamole man, come on. That's
racist.
That seems very racist. That seems very charged based on that. You could have said cars.
Yeah.
You could have said cars. It's like
would have been more apt.
A famous thing that is produced in Mexico. That's honestly one of the bigger impacts of what's going to happen with these tariffs if it happens. But, you know, I digress. And two, these are like the kind of like authoritarian narratives that you use when you want the populace to endure something bad so that you can get more political power.
Mm-hmm.
You tie it to this idea that it's like, oh no, you need to endure these higher prices. You need to endure these worsening material conditions because this other issue will get better because of it. Mm-hmm. You need to just suffer for now and then we'll have glory in the future.
Yeah. That's what fascists say.
Come on, man.
And it of course racist. Yes. Obviously, doing the guacamole thing is very racist.
The guac is crazy.
We import far more from Mexico than just guacamole. Like, obviously, right? It seems nonsensical to even talk about this. But as we talked about before, Americans are the ones trafficking the drugs.
Yeah.
Americans are trafficking the drugs for Americans across the border legally because it's easier for Americans to get through than it is illegal immigrants. Mm-hmm. So it's nonsense. And if you were wondering if Republicans will sort of back down or back away from these tariffs, given that they will increase inflation, seems like they're not going to. Inflation is cool if Republicans do it.
Yes, it's really cool. And it's actually just and patriotic if Republicans do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Why can't the Democrats do shit like that, man?
I don't know. I saw this tweet the other day where it was like, Charlie Kirk had said something, or was it Charlie Kirk? No, it was Jack Posobiec said something like, I'm willing to pay more for goods if they're made here in America. And it's like, inflation really is just cool if it's Republicans doing it then. That's really all it is.
And it's also, no, you're not when you see how much more expensive it will be.
Yeah.
When you see like prices go up like 200%, I don't think you'll be as cool with it.
Yeah, I better see you complaining about egg prices and gas prices and everything else when these tariffs go into
I better
place.
hear you complain about government spending when we have to subsidize the production of 1 billion new factories.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like, it's completely nonsense. They never actually cared about inflation. They never actually cared about bringing the cost of literally anything down. It's just a cudgel that they used against the Democrat, knowing that Trump's tariffs will increase prices on things. They're just preparing us for it now. They're going to say inflation's cool as long as Republicans do it.
And, you know, continuing my like median voter slander, I feel like there's a lot of people out there that think that like stopping inflation or decreasing inflation means that prices go down. I feel like people think inflation means price, and that's part of why a lot of the like Biden-Harris rhetoric of like, oh, inflation is actually down this month compared to like where it was last year did not fucking land. Yeah. Because people have no concept of what it means. They just think inflation is price in like a roundabout way.
Yeah, it's a bad country we got here.
Yeah, it kind of sucks.
Anyway, that ends that. We interrupt this episode of Head in the Office to remind you to stay warm.
Yeah, remind you that it's getting cold outside and I'm a little chilly.
I wish I had a new hoodie I could wear.
A new comfortable hoodie in a green like money colorway or even a gray colorway.
And, you know, maybe my head is cold. maybe I need something to make my head warm.
Exactly, like a beanie.
And on top of all of that, maybe I want to support my favorite podcast, the number one geopolitical podcast, number one domestic politics podcast,
number one election podcast.
Maybe I want to support them and get all the stuff that we've talked about. And you can do that if you head over to headintheoffice.com and get in on our merch.
It's pretty good. And, if you want it to last, it's all embroidered. Featuring new embroidered design, wonderful colors, and,
Yeah, it's perfect for the winter. It's perfect for you. And it's perfect for a gift as we head into the holidays. So head over to headintheoffice.com, support the show.
Switching gears, I talked about how I drew that, immigration is down 40% from where it was in December, and it's largely because of, Mexico just, tightening up their border regulation, their border crossing regulation, right? Yeah. And I said that was a spoiler from a later segment. We're here at that segment. Can you guess where I'm going to be talking about?
Are you talking location?
You know what? Can you guess where and what I'm going to be talking about?
Well, we got to be talking about Lone Star State.
We are talking about the Lone
greatest
Star
state in the country.
That's right, brother. That's right.
Best highways in the country. What we're going to be talking about? Let's say Greg Abbott has ordered rocket launchers to be placed at the southern border.
Close. That's close, and that's where I'm going to get to it. That's where I'm going to get to.
Greg Abbott has called in a kill streak at the southern border.
Greg Abbott has called in a chopper gunner at the southern border. Well, that's kind of where I'm getting to at the end of it. But yeah, you got it. It's immigration in Texas. We got to talk about America's favorite fucking governor, Greg Abbott, doing an evil, but this time it's legal, in news that serves to kind of foreshadow what's to come in a Trump presidency. This week, the DOJ lost its case against Texas pertaining to the removal of razor wire placed along the Texas-Mexico border at the Rio Grande. The U.S. Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals ruled 2-1 that Border Patrol agents could not cut the razor wire lining the border, siding with Texas, that argued doing so would undermine the state's border security efforts.
Nice.
What a banger.
Isn't the Fifth Circuit full of demons?
Yeah, we talk about the Fifth Circuit regularly. I feel like the Fifth Circuit is the most notable court for delivering bad decisions.
They're evil.
And a significant part of that has got to be because Texas is within it, within its jurisdiction, and Ken Paxton and Greg Abbott are just always want to do the wrong thing.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And I think the Fifth Circuit is stocked with Reagan and Trump.
I was going to say, I think there's at least one Reaganite on there.
I think it's probably one Reagan, two Trump.
Yeah.
Which diabolical makeup right there.
Really good combination.
That's wild.
If there's anything that's symbolic this episode, it's definitely that. Yeah.
Yeah. The Biden administration, in their case against Texas, said that the razor wire impedes Border Patrol's ability to actually patrol the area, and that it would impede their attempts to rescue migrants who need help in the river. That argument was rejected.
It's also federalism. First of all, federalism as in the federal government is more powerful than state governments, and state governments can't trample on the jurisdiction of the federal government.
And the federal government presides over borders.
And I was just about to say, the border is not the property of Texas itself.
Yes.
It is the United States border.
I really don't understand how we can fundamentally argue that the federal government, who is in charge of the border, is impeding Texas's right to do border security.
Yeah. Because I'm absolutely positive that if Texas, for some reason, was a liberal safe haven, and they were removing sort of booby traps along the rivers, along the border's edge that the federal government placed, the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals would not rule that Texas is cool in doing that.
No, the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals would rule that the National Guard is allowed to coup Texas.
Yeah, exactly, right?
I don't understand how we're getting here. One of these things supersedes the other, and that's the federal government. Yeah. The federal government is supposed to be the end-all, be-all, dog. This is their job, and they are saying that you are impeding their job. And Texas isn't even arguing that this isn't impeding your job. They're arguing that the federal government is overstepping. That's not possible.
Literally,
kind of not possible.
But it's the border, dog. That's where we get to be the most violent. The federal government can do whatever they want.
No, I'm saying
doesn't make sense.
That's what they're there for. It's.
Because there's going to be no restrictions when Trump wants to do whatever he wants with the border.
Yeah,
it's there's a bias towards being violent. You can do things that are violent at either at the state or federal level, but you can't do things that are less violent.
And as soon as you try to roll back that violence, the argument is, well, you're stopping me from securing the border.
You're stopping me from doing violence.
There's a fucking invasion going on, brother. What about all the fentanyl that's coming across the border? It's crazy, and the whole thing just kind of makes me wonder how the fuck we got here.
Yeah,
because if this went through. if it's like, oh, you can do the razors, it's almost guaranteed that things like the buzzsaw buoys that we also covered when the story popped off will go unchallenged, and should they become challenged, be ruled legal.
Yeah.
I mean, if we're just going off the precedent that the Fifth Circuit set here, I think that razor wire is worse than the buzzsaw buoys, but the buzzsaw buoys are aesthetically worse than the razor wire.
Yeah.
If you don't recall when we covered this story like a year and a half ago at this point, Texas, on top of putting razor wire along the river, also put out buoys into the middle of the river that had buzzsaws between them.
Yep.
Fucking wild.
So you couldn't get over them.
Yeah. What is the, or if you're trying to climb over one and you fall onto the fucking buzzsaw.
Yeah, and you die.
Yeah.
The buzzsaws weren't spinning, but they're
of course,
sharp,
but
right?
like they're still there and it's still sharp steel.
And it wasn't, the razor wire was under the water.
It's like, I don't know exactly how the razor wire is put. In the videos I see, it's put on like the river bank.
Okay.
But still, like on the river bank in the water, you can't fucking...
You die. Yeah. Or you get maimed.
That's bad. And the point of these things is to maim and be cruel.
Well, yeah, and I think in Eagle Pass last year, there was a child that I think that died, some kids that died because of this.
Something like that. There's a bunch of people that have died because of this. There's a lot of people that have been injured because of this.
Maybe that's the point.
And maybe the cruelty is the point.
Yeah.
And it's almost like Border Patrol is going to have a hard time getting to them if they have to, I don't know, cut through razor wires to be able to safely get into the river to rescue someone who's drowning. But like, I don't know, it seems like their duties are being impeded. But
yeah. It's
who the fuck am I?
It's also like putting down razor wire isn't going to stop illegal immigrants from trying to come over, because they're not trying to come over because it's easy. It's because they're often fleeing some kind of political violence or economic insecurity or something like that. You're not going to stop them from coming over. You're just going to kill people.
And
children and old people probably.
I was reading a Fox News article about this, and some guy from like an evil institution, the Evil Immigration Institute, got on there and said like he was asked like, oh, do you think the razor wire is actually working? And he said, oh, yes, it's working tremendously.
Oh, tremendous.
Now, instead of being able to cross there, in fear of the razor wire, they instead have to cross a path that is hundreds of miles longer and hotter and in the desert and much more dangerous. And it's like, well, people are going to like do that if it's less like aesthetically dangerous because their perceived danger is a little bit different. That's wrong.
It's great how our only answer to any immigration issue is just kill more migrants.
Kill.
Do more violence. Do as much violence as possible. There's no other solution.
And I also think that it's like kind of funny that the legal arguments the Biden admin put forth center around like the practical ability for Border Patrol to do its job rather than the like inhumanity of the methods.
Well, there's no legal basis for that.
That's what I was going to kind of get into. Like, I get it from a legal perspective. I understand that a lot of good things get ruled in favor of, not because of their moral character, but more so because they are able to more easily fit into this like set of frameworks that we've already established. But you can't tell me something like this isn't so excessively cruel that it borders on cruel and unusual punishment.
Yeah, well, I mean, immigrants aren't citizens.
They're not citizens, so they don't have rights.
Yeah,
because rights are not something that's like, even though conservatives say rights are given to us from God, they're not
only
given to brown people. They're not given to people who weren't born in America.
Yeah.
That's what it is. These basic human decencies, that doesn't apply.
God-given rights that were offered only to the people living within this set of borders during this time in history.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it also makes me wonder, like, how far could these ghouls go before, I don't know, anybody in any of the judicial institutions that surround the country, specifically the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals or other courts, would say, guys, I think you've gone a little bit too far.
Yeah.
Like, could they put up, I don't know, fucking AI machine guns like Israel has in Gaza? Like they put on the Gaza fence? Like, genuinely, if you can have razor wire that is there to maim somebody, to act as a deterrent, which really it's there to maim somebody who crosses, why could you not have a fucking gun station pointed up there to act as a deterrent?
Yeah, I mean, especially with Trump coming in. Like, I think if Greg Abbott got real excessive, Trump would tell him to calm down only because it makes Trump look bad.
Yeah.
But so long as his image isn't harmed publicly, I think Trump would let him do basically anything.
And it's like, if nothing is so like aesthetically evil that it could even, I don't know, melt the cold hearts of these conservative judges or anything like that, it would take something like an act of Congress to stop this, and that's just not like politically viable right now.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? We're in such a fucked place when it comes to this.
I mean, give it 4 years, Democrats will be in favor of AI machine guns on the border.
True. Well, no, actually, they'll be very against AI machine guns, and they'll go back to razor wires.
Oh, good point.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Democrats will be like, actually, we we should place signs that warn them of a minefield. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
So don't cross.
Yeah, don't cross.
Because, I mean, what's different about that? What's different than saying there are fucking mines hidden in the water right here? If you hit them, you go kaboom. Or if you cross the river and try to get through the razor wire, you're cut up and dead.
I'm surprised that they don't call for landmines. That'd be a far cheaper alternative.
And that's the other thing is because shit like this isn't even really working.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's like, even if we're talking about how inhumane this is and how U.S. law can't really stand to stop it. And also, while we're talking about the courts, now that Trump is president, there would have been, should Harris have won, a way to appeal this Fifth Circuit decision to the Supreme Court and maybe hope that somehow Amy Coney Barrett or Roberts switch sides and usher in a ruling that is good and moral and just.
Or at the very least, not so evil.
Not so evil, exactly.
Yeah.
There would have been a hope for that. But now that Trump is taking over, the DOJ is just going to drop the case.
Oh,
or
yeah, 100%.
Trump's DOJ is not going to pursue the case. Like, it's done on arrival. This is the final outcome.
Yeah.
So that's cool.
And it doesn't make a ton of a difference. Like aesthetically, like you said, it's more brutal and violent. The buoys with the buzzsaws and the razor wire on the river's bed, like all of that is bad. But like the Biden attitude towards immigration was still pretty violent.
Yeah.
It's just like this is aesthetically more evil and probably more likely to kill people than other methods of stopping people from coming over. It's just like, why don't we have any political organization around supporting the entrance of immigrants to the country? Sounds like a good idea to
like
me.
funding, processing for these immigrants and doing whatnot, quickening a path to citizenship.
Yeah. Federal jobs program for immigrants that come in, they can build homes. We need more homes.
That sounds pretty good to me.
More people means more homes. I'm not talking like slavery or anything, obviously. Pay them and let them do whatever they want.
No, think about it. We could have workers that come over.
I'm thinking of what Minthara says in Baldur's Gate. You get to Baldur's Gate and she's like, there's all these refugees. Why aren't they letting them in the city? We should put them to work. They need to earn their keep. That's not what I'm calling for.
That's a good one. That's more the Greg Abbott. I was thinking more so of Mice and Men. You know what?
yeah. The farmhands.
Yeah, exactly. The migrant workers or whatever, just walking around. Yeah.
Yeah. No. Pay them well. Give them workers' rights.
That's
let them
steeped in American tradition.
Form a
right
family.
there.
But I don't know. I feel like that'd be pretty cool for economic activity and growth.
Yeah, I think so too. A path to city. You build 5 houses, bam. Social Security here.
Or just a federal jobs program for everybody. That'd be cool.
That would be cool. Guaranteed jobs. Lord knows in this labor market.
Maybe businesses would be forced to pay people a bit more in the face of some real goddamn competition.
And building houses, that's the trades. You know what I'm saying? You can bundle it. A Democrat could bundle
blue collar work.
In blue collar work package.
Yeah.
You get a Democrat out there wearing Carhartt and a hard hat on the job site. Come on now.
It's easy.
We could do it so much better than fucking David.
Let me be your new David Plouffe, and then as soon as I win one campaign because I'm on the coattails of somebody more popular and successful than me, I'm gonna switch up and work for Uber.
Oh, 100%.
Or fucking Shein or whatever.
And I'm raising the prices on your Uber Eats order.
I am,
and you're gonna pay for it. You fucking lazy liberal.
You want your burrito delivery, don't you? I know you do.
But even speaking to like how this is more evil and just bad and causing more death and destruction, the Hope Border Institute reports that the presence of this razor wire is directly increasing migrant injuries and deaths.
Screw what I said before. Then.
Dylan Corbett of the Institute told Fox News, quote, "In El Paso, nearly our entire border has been fortified by layers of concertina wire, razor wire, including part of our border with New Mexico. While the number of border deaths along the whole border appear to have gone down over the past year, in El Paso they have increased. That increase has been sharp over the past couple years and coincides with the presence of the National Guard and the razor wire because it is forcing border crossers just to the west of the city where they die in the desert or crossing the river."
Okay, well maybe what I said earlier was completely wrong. I was thinking that it wouldn't make that much of a difference, but maybe
it is
signiftly killing more people. Okay, I take it back.
Kind of crazy, and it's
fact checked.
It kind of just goes back to the thing I said about the Biden is like you really can't argue on the basis that it's killing more people.
Yeah, because
for why it should be bad.
Because judges will be like, yeah, exactly.
Well, precisely. They did something wrong. You know, the first thing they did when this entered this country is broke the law.
They're all criminals.
They have no respect for this country's rule of law. So the death penalty,
of course.
Maybe that's why the DNC took the death penalty out of their party platform. And they're like, well, if you do a civil infraction,
well, they did a crime.
If you do something that's equivalent to a speeding ticket in the eyes of the law as written,
yikes.
Yikes, man.
Yeah, that's actually really bad. Yeah.
And like, this just not even necessary. Again, the cruelty is the point. I get it, but on top of it just being cruel, I'm going to speak to the liberals here. It's expensive.
Oh, there
This
you
is
go.
something that's expensive. It takes a lot of personnel to pay and train to maintain and patrol the razor wire. The razor wire itself constantly needs to be replaced as it's damaged. That's kind of like a dangerous thing, you know, occupational health and safety, occupational risks and whatnot.
And then we got to pay for time off.
Yeah.
Workers' comp.
Dangerous and a liability. Guys.
Why is my tax money going to this?
Why is my tax money funding the fucking Border Patrol agent that cut himself on razor wire?
That's,
Give me healthcare.
That's crazy. Yeah, I could have healthcare.
Give me healthcare. And it's not working and killing people. So that's where we are.
Looking bad on the border, folks.
It's looking real bad. And I'll hit it again. Less people are coming over because Mexico's tightening stuff.
Yeah.
We don't need to put up razor wire.
Man,
We don't need to put up the machine guns. Like how far can they go before people decide that enough is enough?
I don't know if there's like an end really.
They might have the chopper gunners at the border. Greg Abbott was already talking about gunboats in 2022.
I do remember that. I feel like the only real way that this kind of shit, like the spiral, slows down is if we have like a nationwide pushback against Trump's view of immigration. But that requires a stronger Democratic or a more thoughtful, compassionate, humanitarian Democratic Party that we don't have right now.
Which it's like cynically we could get.
Yeah.
Like we could get a cynical Democratic Party that decides to push back against
like 2018 coded.
I mean, something like this is very ripe for that. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like the buzzsaws and the fucking razor wire and whatever else Greg Abbott wants to do is incredibly ripe for liberals to come in and say, enough is enough.
Yeah.
Guys, this is senseless.
Well, and like you said in a couple episodes ago, like there was a sort of Democratic sentiment in favor of immigrants reached like a fever pitch before we started squandering all of that political energy. And now we're at a point where everyone thinks immigration is this massive crisis and the only way to solve it is violence.
Yeah, we worked 2 decades to like get voters to like care about immigrants and think favorably of immigrants. And you know what? Even in 2024, exit polling showed us that voters, even like voters in aggregate, Democrats and Republicans like as a whole, preferred increasing pathways to citizenship rather than just being strict and super hard and closing the border. That still exists. It's still something we can tap into. We've squandered so much of that will.
Yeah, we haven't talked about it in those terms in like years, right? Like it's going to take a while to rebuild that kind of rhetoric and messaging if we even wanted to, and it's impossible to do it with the people right now that keep talking about, oh, there was a bipartisan bill in Congress. I was going to
say, people like David Plouffe probably think that, oh, we did better in swing states because we told them more about immigration.
Oh my God. Oh man, if he never worked for another political campaign again, it'd be too soon. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm pro I'm generally pro people having jobs and means to support themselves. Not that guy.
If there was ever an entire sector that deserved to collapse.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's Democratic strategy.
If there's ever a sector that genuinely deserves to be laid off,
all of them. Take jobs away.
Take them away.
Get a real job.
Yeah, I'm trying to see job degrowth in that market, man. Come on now.
We need to
talk about that macroeconomic indicator.
It's a fake job. It's not a real job.
But the speech at the fucking play at the Ellipse.
No one even knows where that is.
I don't know what that is.
It's a place in D.C. It's like,
is that where Trump did his speech? Or
before January 6th?
It was the J6 thing?
It's the Ellipse.
I didn't even know what the fuck that was, man. And I do this.
Who cares? You know what I'm saying? No, literally nobody cares. In the interview, he was like, her closing message in the campaign was about the economy, and yes, it was at the Ellipse. It's like, brother.
Yes, it was at the Ellipse.
redacted. I can't say
I swear to God, man. Like, I don't understand what they think people care about.
I don't know.
I don't get it. Because, like, I don't even think CNN fucking cares about January 6th insofar as they can, like, I don't know, get a headline out of Liz Cheney's testimony.
Yeah.
Nobody in the media has been talking about January 6th since the January 6th, like, the thingies.
Yeah.
The House committees on it.
Yeah. Which went nowhere.
And nobody cared about them. They cared about the first one for a little bit, and then nobody cared about the follow-ups.
Well, yeah, there was an attempted coup, and then Merrick Garland didn't do his job.
Yeah.
Like, what was Broward doing this whole time?
Merrick Garland actively refused to persecute Republicans for things that they did that were wrong and bad because he didn't want to be perceived as politicizing the DOJ. Just like with immigration, the perception that you are weak on this issue is always going to exist, whether or not you actually are or are not. You might as well fucking do it. Yeah. You might as well put your balls in it.
Yeah.
Man.
Fucking put your belt on and get to work.
Put your belt on, fucking small ball Democrats.
Like, again, I don't even know if they're like, I don't think that these people are like purposefully evil or doing bad things. I just think they're so wildly out of touch because of the industry.
Paying the wrong consultants. I just think that maybe the consultant class just got a big head after Obama 2008 and 2012.
100%, yes.
And they think that they're infallible despite them being very fallible and being the only people who can lose to Trump.
Yeah. Yeah, they lost the campaign to Trump. We used to say Biden's the only guy that could lose to Trump. Or these two guys are the only ones that could lose to each other. Turns out it was the campaign itself.
Yeah, man.
So bad.
Turns out, like, I don't know, maybe charismatic figureheads are their way to go.
Yeah, maybe we need a strong man.
Yeah.
Maybe we need an authority figure. You know what I'm saying? An authoritarian, if you will.
I think so.
Not really.
No, I'm kidding.
I'm not switching
Just
up.
somebody who can talk, bro.
Someone who's locked in.
Someone
that'd be
who
nice.
can get up there and yap goodly.
I'm literally a Bernie-crat.
Podcaster.
Yeah, exactly. Someone who consistently does this kind of thing, who knows how to talk, who talks repeatedly, who has a track record of being consistent.
That's right.
I think we know who we're talking about here, folks.
I do too.
So put me in charge of strategy.
Do it.
Send me. I mean, these people were getting paid like six figures. You know what I'm saying? Like $500,000.
It's insane. They get paid too damn much.
Oh my God, I know. It's $1 billion.
Consultants in general get paid too damn much. I want that industry to collapse as well. Mm-hmm. Not only Democrat consultants that can collapse harder, but I want just consultants to just stop.
Win on your own merits.
Every single consultant that gets paid the big bucks, I don't know, either got lucky to get where they were before they became a consultant or had a business that, like, I don't know, basically fucking was going to fail before they sold it.
Yeah, or they just came in from, like, representing venture capital.
Yeah.
And they're just bringing in those interests with them into the campaign.
Man.
It's bad. If you're a political strategist, you're not. It's not a real job. The only real political strategy happens right here. Grassroots.
What value are they producing society, huh?
Exactly.
I podcast. That's,
You know what one of my favorite activities is?
What?
Reading.
Oh, I love reading. I love literature.
And one of my favorite things to read are the reviews we get on Apple Podcasts.
Always.
Not only do I love to read them, but it's a really great way to support the show. If you want to help us out, go and leave a 5-star review on Apple. As always, we read them here on the show. And if you want to make me happy, if you want to become my non-parasocial friend,
that's right.
One step on the 1,000 steps that it takes to get there is to leave a 5-star review on Apple. We'd really appreciate it.
Just remember, my friendship, it's for sale. Mm-hmm. And if you want to become one of my friends, you can go to the Patreon, or completely for free, you can leave a review on Apple. And even if you don't want to become my friend, don't you want to see another human smile?
Exactly. So consider leaving a review on Apple. It really helps out the show. It's a free way to do it. And you'll be one step closer to being a real friend of ours.
Exactly. Now with that, back to the episode. All right, so moving on to our sort of final topic. I think you guys know what this is about. It's been underscoring every single one of our episodes for the last fucking 14 months. Yeah. Well, maybe this particular one, but this general issue the last 14 months. This has been what's going on. We got to talk about the Middle East. We got to go global.
Antony Blinken and Joe Biden decided to do their jobs after it would have been politically advantageous.
Yep.
To get it done.
Yep. So that's good.
Yeah.
We love to see that. We love to see everybody just miss the timings on everything.
Yeah, it's I'm not happy about it, but I guess it's a good thing now.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Yeah. Yeah, anyways. Kind of. Either way, on Wednesday of last week, a ceasefire was announced between Israel and Hezbollah. Woo! Ceasefire. We fuck with ceasefires. From CNN, the terms involved a solid 60-day ceasefire and a withdrawal of Hezbollah from southern Lebanon and a withdrawal of the IDF from Lebanese territories. Under the agreement, the Lebanese government is to monitor Hezbollah's activity so that they cannot regroup in the south. The Lebanese military, in conjunction with UN peacekeeping forces and a multinational committee, will keep track of the situation to make sure that no one is violating the terms.
But I feel like part of the problem already is that Hezbollah is a part of the government.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
It's like a political faction.
I understand like the Lebanese military and Hezbollah are separate things, but Hezbollah is very big and powerful. And I mean, 60 days isn't that long to begin with, but I feel like if they really wanted to do it, they'll just do it. Yeah.
And it's also like, I don't understand this whole 60-day ceasefire thing.
Yeah.
I don't. And I feel like that may be a spot where like, I'm just not hip to the issue, but like, the rhetoric is we're going to do a temporary ceasefire in hopes of enduring a lasting peace.
Well, and 60 days importantly goes into Trump's administration.
Why don't we just cease fire?
I don't know. Biggest question of the day.
I've been saying this for a year now. Why don't we just cease fire? Yeah. Why does there have to be 60-day terms and whatnot? I understand that if they don't do what you want to agree with, but like...
Yeah, I mean, the heart of all of this is still Gaza, of course. Like that's the pretext Hezbollah had to begin with for firing rockets and stuff like that, but whatever.
But it's like, it's kind of shaky still.
Of course.
As the IDF is pulling out of Lebanese territories, they're doing so kind of slowly. They still have troops deployed, and they are still warning the over 1 million Lebanese citizens who have been displaced from the invaded territory to stay away until they're done.
Okay.
So the people in southern Lebanon who lived in those villages that had to be evacuated, that were bombed to shit, still can't go back despite the ceasefire, because the IDF is doing like a phased pullout. And now, as of Sunday, December 1st, how are things holding up? It's shaky, like, to say the least. You know what? We're a couple days out. On Thursday, there were already like accusations flying from both sides about ceasefire violations. So it's like, how did this happen?
I mean, Netanyahu has explicitly said, like, we're going to go back in, like, if we even get a peep that we need to. Yeah. Type shit. Like, that's not really a ceasefire. It's kind of just stopping for a second.
Like, why?
Yeah.
I don't understand. Why can't we just cease fire? Why can't we just cease fire? Israel alleged that a number of suspects arrived in southern Lebanon with vehicles, and that was breaching the ceasefire. Hezbollah argued that Israel then launched mortar strikes at said subjects, and Hezbollah argued that violated the ceasefire. Lebanese media reported that it was 2 civilians that were fired on. The IDF defended itself by saying they have troops remaining that will enforce the terms of the deal.
Yeah, enforce the terms of the ceasefire by stopping a ceasefire.
Yeah, like enforce the terms of the ceasefire by like doing more violence. I think they're still like flying planes. The day before the ceasefire got announced, they did like a massive bombing campaign in Beirut, I think.
Yeah.
Like, excuse me for thinking that like this may not turn out. I don't know. I really hope it does. I don't want things to keep going, but like they're clearly they're itching.
Yeah.
They're itching.
Well, and this importantly isn't a ceasefire in Gaza.
Yes.
And Gaza is like the heart of all of this. It's the only reason that like the Houthis and Hezbollah have a pretext to start attacking Israel again to begin with. If you stop the conflict in Gaza, you stop Israel massacring and genociding the population there, then Hezbollah and the Houthis have no reason to continue doing what they're doing.
Yeah.
But until you do that, they have the pretext, and they will have sort of regional support for continuing their strikes on Tel Aviv or whatever that are intercepted by the Iron Dome.
And it's just like, I feel like it also speaks to like this like absurdity that we talked about when they first invaded Lebanon is, what are you going to do in another country's territory?
Yeah.
How are you going to ensure that there are like lasting changes in this kind of thing in another country's territory?
Israel's not doing regime change.
You know what I mean?
We couldn't pull it off. They're not pulling it off.
Like apparently like Hezbollah was in southern Lebanon because they had like a network of like underground tunnels or some shit, and Israel knew about it because they had already violated a previous... Israel and Hezbollah had both violated a previous like early 2000s agreement that they made where Hezbollah wouldn't be in southern Lebanon and Israel wouldn't fly warplanes over Lebanon, and they both were violating that.
Of course.
So it's like, excuse me for not believing either side of this.
We'll see.
We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens. We'll see if this holds up for the 60-day period. Then we'll see if actual meaningful peace comes about.
Yeah.
I do kind of wonder, though, and I feel like this is an aspect that I may be uneducated on and that a dear listener could fill me in on. What the fuck is UNIFIL doing in southern Lebanon, if not, like, mediating this?
I'm not sure, yeah. I don't know.
Because I think the UN peacekeeping forces were there to, like, monitor Hezbollah, but I mean, clearly they didn't do that.
Wasn't Israel, like, attacking them, too? They were, like, raiding in the UN headquarters?
Recently, once they started invading, they were firing on UNIFIL positions. But, like, before that, like, leading up to this, maybe the UN does suck. I don't know.
I condemn the UN.
I don't know. Obviously, I jest, but that's something I feel like I should look into because I really don't understand what's going there. Because southern Lebanon is like UNIFIL territory.
Yeah.
What's going on?
I don't know, but it's not looking good. There were some other news pieces I saw out of Israel this week, though.
Oh, Biden announced that he wants to take the opportunity to set up Gaza ceasefire talks again, and Egypt is hosting Hamas leaders today, Sunday, December 1st, to start off the new round of talks.
Speaking of leaders, I saw the ICC, and this is, I don't know if did we talk about last week, the ICC issuing arrest warrants?
No, we didn't.
The ICC issued arrest warrants for Netanyahu and Yoav Gallant. They said they can't issue arrest warrants for Hamas because all the top leaders that they talked about before are dead now.
Really?
So can't arrest dead bodies. But the ICC has formally issued these warrants.
Well, that's cool, I guess.
Suggesting that if Netanyahu or Yoav Gallant set foot in any of the countries party to the ICC, they would be arrested. U.S. isn't a party to the ICC. Canada is, and said they would arrest Netanyahu and Yoav Gallant if they went to Canada. I haven't heard anything out of European countries. Germany, kind of understandably, is hesitant to go. They should not be the ones leading the charge here, of course. Germany has not committed to doing it. They're also kind of having their own issue with like a fascist takeover at the moment. I think like France, I don't know if they've said anything yet. Don't count on the French for anything good ever, of course, but that's a thing. That's a development. A good one,
well,
I'll say.
What we need to do is Trump is obviously going to invite Netanyahu to the White House at some point during the first bit of his presidency because, maybe Netanyahu will throw out a disingenuous end to the war, end to like the overt violence of the war, maybe to appease Trump, and then Trump will invite him over. We need to get somebody to trick Netanyahu into crossing the Detroit Bridge to Canada. You know what I'm saying? It'd be like, oh, Netanyahu, come to Michigan.
Land in Toronto, we'll come pick you up.
Yeah, it's very close to Philadelphia where you grew up.
Exactly, your stomping grounds.
Exactly. I promise it's really close. So just come to Michigan and we'll show you around.
Exactly.
And then we can drive him to Canada.
Yeah.
Little does he know.
Yeah. So Justin Trudeau standing on business there. That's cool. I don't know what.
You said Netanyahu and Yoav Gallant.
Yeah.
Did Ben Gvir ever get arrest warrants?
I think Yoav Gallant has like a higher up position than Ben Gvir does.
I feel like if anyone deserves it, low-key.
Oh, Ben Gvir.
I feel like if we only were to issue one, I wouldn't even say Netanyahu.
Yoav Gallant's one of the chiller members of the cabinet.
Yoav Gallant has been like, not oppositional, obviously, but he's been a moderating voice. I guess he's the defense minister.
Overton
right?
window and all that. Yes,
he's the defense minister. Yeah, okay, he has been a lot chiller. Ben Gvir just wants to kill.
Yeah, no, Ben Gvir is a bloodthirsty guy. And then the other piece of news I saw is that Haaretz has been sanctioned by the Israeli government.
Really?
Haaretz, the independent newspaper in Israel. Yeah, they're like a center left leaning. Again, Overton window.
They're
and
the
stuff.
People who reported on the IDF using human shields.
Yeah, exactly. Well, they've done a lot
that we talked about and flopped everywhere we posted it.
They've done a lot of favorable reporting for like Palestinians, and I guess unfavorable, quote unquote, for the Israeli government.
Who'd have thought? How could they spin that narrative?
It's kind of
bring me to the spin room, spin doctorate.
They kind of earned that reputation on their own. But Haaretz has been sanctioned by the government. They still operate, but they basically have had like all public funding pulled. And members of the government can't have subscriptions to Haaretz now and stuff like that.
Really?
So, yeah, which is crazy to me because Haaretz is not, it's an Israeli newspaper and it's not like progressive.
It's like
you know what I mean?
New York Times.
Yeah, it's not like a progressive organization. I think it happened after like the head publisher at the company said some shit about like God, I don't remember the exact quote now, but he gave some speech that Netanyahu didn't like.
Punishing journalists abroad and at home.
Well, they're the only democracy in the Middle East.
Yeah.
That's what democracies do. They stifle dissent and free speech.
Huh. Wow. That's quite the story.
Yeah, liberal democracy.
That's like if Trump sanctioned the New York Times.
Which he said he wants to revoke broadcasting licenses for MSNBC and stuff like that. So
it birds of a feather.
Precisely, cut from the same cloth. I mean, Philly and New York aren't that far away.
They're really not. It's like a train ride away.
Exactly. That's why the Eagles can't win the Super Bowl this year.
Real as hell.
Because that'll be a dub for Netanyahu.
I've heard people say that the Eagles are a contender.
That's fucked up.
I've also heard that the Chiefs right now, they're the worst 11-1 team in NFL history by point differential.
I totally agree.
It's just the stats.
Totally
it's
agree.
Just the stats. You can't argue with it.
And Chicago Bears coach deserved to get fired.
Oh, God.
Through that game.
Yeah, we've been talking about people who deserve to get fired all episode without talking about the one guy who fucked up bigly this week.
Uh-huh. They almost won, too.
I'm for it, though. I'm for it, though.
Absolutely.
They almost won. The Raiders almost won. Georgia Tech almost beat Georgia.
Yeah, that's crazy.
What the fuck?
Where was that? The world is turned upside down.
Yeah, it's a holiday weekend, and all of a sudden people don't want to show up to work. Typical.
Mm-hmm. Nobody wants to work anymore. Liberals across the country.
Because, the NFL was infected by Black Lives Matter.
Well, of course.
Remember the kneeling?
Yeah, I sure do remember the kneeling.
Remember the kneeling? Exactly. That's when we lost football as a great American institution.
Aaron Rodgers still got a job. So at least it's not all is lost.
That's true.
A true patriot.
That's true.
So anyways, I think that brings us to the end of the episode here today. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you're not feeling too down and destitute.
I do.
It's December. It's it's the month of darkness, folks. It really is. It's going to start getting darker early. Well, it already does get dark pretty early.
Yeah, it's
getting
dark.
dark right now.
It's dark when I go to work. It's dark when I come home from work.
Exactly. It's going to feel dark with Trump coming into office like a month and a half from now. Stick in there, though. Yeah, and also look out for the Hiddo Award show because we'll start doing like the stories and the voting and stuff.
Yeah,
like
we should send out the Google form like next week.
Yeah,
because oh my God, it's December 1st.
Oh, and if you're a patron, make sure you are on the postcard program.
Oh, we got postcards coming out.
Well, yeah, we got postcards that just got here today. So we'll be over the next week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, we'll be working on sending those out.
Yeah.
Any other announcements?
I don't think so. Check out the Patreon. We got that goal, $3,000.
Oh yeah, community contest.
That'll
be exciting. Hopefully we can do that like early next year.
Yeah, put up a poster.
Uh-huh.
Some shit
right behind Gage.
Type shit.
It can be whatever you want.
Oh my goodness.
It can be something insane.
It could be something nuts. It could be like a diploma from Hiddo University.
Exactly, a diploma. That's a perfect example.
And while we're speaking about Hiddo University and also the Hiddo Church, the Sunday sermon, we got to give thanks to all of our members who give tithe and pay their tuition.
That's the angle we're taking. These people are getting their education.
100. When Trump abolishes the Department of Education, you bet as soon as he does that, we are filing as a college. we are filing as a college. You're attending lecture every Sunday. All right, special thanks to the people who have a great attendance record. Caden Kraut, Lord Tyler Radiant, Chris the Postman, Christy Beck, Dylan B, Andrew Harris, Mike Chaplinsky, Omar Zuno, Clayton LaFed, Mark Yeager, Caleb Joy, Rich Taro, Tari, Gavin Mayer Maldonado, Hunter W, Fergalaki, Max Viscas, Jacob Rogers, Colton Newberry, Fixer Punk, Jim Egbers, Jeff Muzzy, Bagel Burrito, Cincy Alex, Joe Stenstrom, Adrian Sandoval, Chloe Sam 601, Colleen Cutsver Yuk, Jennifer DeVoe, Big Bird Titty, Crawfishin, Benneth Bennington III, Alexia Benanti, Nietzsche, Big Booty Beatdown, Sam Maloney, Two-Headed Boy, Ben Shapiro's boyfriend, Ted Cruz's boy toy, Dictator Jace, Luke O'Shea, Cucker Tarleson, Danielle Jackson, The Word of Microsoft, Jennifer Science, Aaron and his Gundam Gundams, Darth Father, Tailored for Content, Corey Chambers, Ellie N, Davin Hatchard, Retro Mondo, Emma the Dew Slayer, Veronica aka V, Raxon, Ass Smith the Grotler, Flower Clown, Beetle Bugs, Murder in a Trench Coat, Lonnie Rogers, Slavic and Sapphic, Casey Lynn Kelly, Snake Eyes and Hope of Giants, aka Ghana, Quana Don,
Zach Lantian, Info Russell, Austin Greif, Marcus Corbett, Caleb Roper, Taylor Rensock, Cammy, Tylen Freeman, Steak Daddy, Tay-Tay, Isaac Hodges, Madeline C, Kayla Lowe, Anna Valenic, Casey C, Sayesta West, August, Particular Pikmin, Sir Capalot, Jeff Signs, Howard the Duck, Brennan is Egg, JR, Drew Batchilder, Froggy Gumdrop, Jackie Boy, Shameless, Coherent Babbles, Sasha, MJ is Sharp, Michaela Muncie, The Wallace 3000, Jared Finch, Tactical Snowflake, Son of Ander, Vanilla Bryce, Chris T, Kishan Lala, Amanda R, Hanky Panky, Tyler J, Damian Blues, Ashley White, Lalo Valesco, Particulon, Memfrez, Gorgeous Girl Mukes, Lauren, Uncrassomatic Boar, Sasquatch, Rhonda Stiletto, Midwest Marxist, Joe the Mailman, Gary from West Michigan, Shawnee GG, Juniper Not Jupiter, Stacked Crabs, I Crowley, Urban Peach, Lord of Forlorn, Holt Forsyth, Kevin Kisaya, Schnoodle, Booty Snakes, Erica, Krusty Crab, Do Fairy, Chelceratops, Austin Lima, Lane Waltz, Azim Fidah Hussein, Brooklyn G, Noverk the Dastardly, Goldthorn, Addie Book, Merlin, John from Houston, Moss, Anaya, Ian C, Headass McDeadass, That Art Dork, Sergeant Pookie, Connor Nix, Jordan T, Hoodie, Kim Kitsuragi, Rose Grimm, Jamie the Young Extremist, Jack the Heathen, Archer W, and my mom. Thank you all so much for being A+ students.
That's right.
All those people.
A+ students, 100%.
That's our 4.0 students.
The class. That's the dean's list.
Yeah, that's the dean's list.
That's the dean's list right there.
Thank you, everybody, for your hard work in the classroom this semester. And we'll catch you next week.
Yes, we will.